ourselves.
5:30, we'll call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of reflection. Dear God, we are grateful and thankful for this day and the blessings, opportunities, and challenges that come along with it. We pray now for strength and your guidance as we humbly ask that you enable us with our different thoughts and ideas to work together toward a common goal of improving our town and serving the residents of Juno Beach. Help us find it in ourselves to each of us act with grace, honor, and compassion as we take this opportunity to render service to our community. Amen.
Amen.
Do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions to the agenda?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll move on to comments from the public.
Dee Dee Halpern.
Good evening. I just wanted to let council know I've identified additional grant funding that we can use for Pelican Lake. And I just want to brief you a little bit. I already forwarded information to Joe and Tony so that they can work on this as well. It's in partnership with the Tree City USA program, which is part of the National Arbor Day Foundation. And this one happens to be a federal grant from the state's forestry department, and it trickles down. There's a lot of agencies involved. But anyway, I spoke with a couple of the program managers a couple of weeks ago. We did a virtual conference. One of them's in Tallahassee, the other in Palm Beach County, and they said we would definitely qualify for this funding, which is great, up to $20,000. So I'll just read you a brief overview. This is Florida's Urban and Community Forestry Grant Program. The primary purpose of this grant is to promote better urban forest management and provide resources necessary for the retention and expansion of community tree canopy throughout the state of Florida. By properly managing their tree infrastructure, communities can increase property values, tourism appeal, and the physical and mental health of residents while reducing stormwater runoff, energy consumption, and air and water pollution. So right now, our Tree City USA certification has lapsed, but they checked the system, and Tony just really has to go in and just finish the application. It doesn't earn you points for the grant application, but if you have your Tree City certification updated, then you are given preferential treatment in the process. So they look favorably on that, and there's no cost to the town, I believe, for updating that certification. Anyway, I look forward to applying for this grant and getting $20,000 in trees to further beautify Pelican Lake.
Mr. Michael Clargen Arcanata is on Zoom. I did. It says join. Dr. Clargen, if you can unmute yourself, your 2-minute starts for public comments.
Okay, can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Nice to be here. Nice to see you all. Nice to see the Zoom working for the people to be able to participate in real time, avoiding the risk of coronavirus, which we are all aware, and the best methods to remain safe, without a doubt, in addition to the distancing, mask and other measures, is these Zoom procedures that can be implemented. And as you know, I have been, during the last previous year, the beginning of the pandemic, favoring widespread use of Zoom and other platforms to ensure participation of the people. And the point that I sent to you via email refers to full transparency and accountability in open government in real time. And there are, an addition, agenda point 4 that I would like to intervene later. But at this point in time, concerning this issue, just through the website portal of the town of Juno Beach. And I'm aware that there have been efforts to improve it, but there are observations that I would like to present for further improvement in order to guarantee participation of people in real time. And in addition to know the council for the people, it would be advisable to have a bio around the pictures and email addresses of the council members, to have a bio with basic experience, areas of interest and expertise for the different town council members. I think it will be helpful for the people of the town to know them a bit better through the portal. And then coming to this central document of the town.
Dr. Klarjan, your 2 minutes are up.
Okay, I'll come close to the central document, which is the comprehensive development plan, should be made available directly and put on the website. You get a link saying that the town is currently in the process of updating the CDP. For more information, contact Frank Davila and so on. But it should be there, whatever it is, should be there in a format that people can intervene and provide feedback and active participation. And I think that's a great way to improve participation of the people in real time. The same for budget. The budget should be there in the portal for everyone to see, to guarantee full transparency and accountability in open government. As I mentioned before, concerning the Zoom and the audio video, I will be participating with comments in agenda item number 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any other comments from the public? All right, there being none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion with respect to the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion.
A second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now discussion on potential crosswalks and sidewalks along Ocean Drive. We'll recognize Frank, you're going to go first.
Yes, sir.
You want to?
I'll do the introduction.
Thank you.
Evening, Council. So at the October 2020 Town Council meeting, Council gave consensus to have the town engineer attend today's meeting to discuss the possibility of having crosswalks or sidewalks down Ocean Drive. Staff this morning sent out a map that's in front of you that shows you the existing sidewalks and one proposed, the existing sidewalks and crosswalks, and one proposed sidewalk and one proposed crosswalk that's going to be happening in front of the Ocean One project. We also have the town's traffic engineer, Mr. Brian Kelly, to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is once again Brian Kelly, traffic engineer with Simmons and White. And I'm here. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. If you want me to kind of just give you a general rundown on pedestrian crosswalks, the process, the pros, the cons, I'm happy to do that, or I'll kind of let you fire away with questions.
Why don't we get some general information? I think let's start there.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll start with pedestrian crosswalks, and I may refer to them as mid-block crosswalk. When I say mid-block, all I really mean is it's not at a signalized intersection, so there's no stop control on the major road. One of the things that is a little bit counterintuitive is pedestrian crosswalks aren't necessarily a safer mechanism for people crossing the road. One of the reasons is it gives sometimes people a false sense of security, thinking, okay, this is a designated crosswalk, I can just step into the roadway, and that's obviously not, certainly not a very good thing. In past years, counties, the FDOT, municipalities were very reluctant to provide any kind of crosswalk, an unsignalized location for that reason. However, as you're probably aware, the last 5 years, there's been a huge trend towards walkability, bikeability, and that movement has caused kind of a redirection where they're certainly adding them and allowing them at many more locations than they did previously. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll just give you a crosswalk wherever you want. They actually require a traffic study that looks at a number of different items. For one, they would like to know how many lanes. You're not going to just put a unsignalized crossing across a 6-lane roadway. Certainly Ocean Drive is an excellent candidate. It's 2-lane roadway. They look at the speed, 30 miles per hour on a road. That's good. And they also want to know what the anticipated number of pedestrians are. So they don't want to just put a crosswalk out there where one person a day is going to cross the street. So they want to see that there's an actual demand. So that's a little bit of the background of it. And there is a traffic study that's required whenever a crossing is recommended or being petitioned. One of the other things that's a more recent movement as well, and our company is actually involved with this. If you go up Ocean Drive, you'll notice just, north of Juneau, that there's a lot of crossings there. You'll see some pedestrian signs. None of those, or very few of those, actually have flashers. They're just a pedestrian sign with the directional arrow going down in the crosswalk. Well, the county is in the process of updating a number of these crossings so that they're actually going to be flashers now. So when a pedestrian goes up there, they require you'll press a button and it flashes to indicate to the road users, particularly at night where that's certainly useful, that there's somebody about to cross the road. So on Ocean Drive or any kind of roadway with substantial traffic volume, a flasher is going to be required. They will not allow you, like you see a lot of these roadways, just to put the pedestrian crossing sign in the marked crosswalk. They will require a flasher. There's a couple of different ones. There's a rapid flasher beacon, and there's also one that's just one kind of bulb. And actually, we're having to work with some different agencies, Environmental Agency and the state, because of the turtles on the ocean, to make sure that the flasher doesn't interfere with that. But there are specifications that work for it. The county's actually in the process of setting a policy, more of a kind of a guideline for pedestrian crossings. It is not finalized yet, but from speaking to the engineers over at the county, pretty much, as I mentioned, any kind of roadway with a lot of volume is going to require a flasher. On certain residential roadways where it's very low volume, very low speed, they wouldn't require a flasher, and you could just kind of put the regular pedestrian signs. So that's a little bit of an overview on it. You can also do such that you can do stamped asphalt, and you have that in a couple locations. You've seen that around. That's certainly an option that helps, but you also have to do a flasher as well. That's just kind of an added aesthetic, added safety improvement with it as well, but the flasher would be required.
Questions for Mr. Kelly? Stu?
Well, these are solar powered flashers.
They are solar power flashers, yes.
So the units are independent in the sense that they'll generate enough to keep them safe. Do they have battery backup or some sort of thing like that, or is it just dependent on the sun?
I assume that there's enough storage within it, because it's not, those flashers are not on all the time. It's only when they're pressed. So it's not like it's constantly being used. So they don't need a hookup to any kind of electricity. They would all be a standalone unit as you.
Yeah, I raised that because we're considering solar but it sounds like for a somewhat different application. How about the connectivity of crosswalk issue? There's one area in particular where we come down from the ridge, and actually there's the old Floral Drive right of way. It's an alternate sort of bicycle pathway. There previously was a marked out bike pathway that went down that road. There's a beach access right across the way from there. We're zoning in on it now.
Yep.
Yeah, all right. So that's where we kind of began the discussion. Can we talk about that spot specifically as to why we may or may not be able to put a sidewalk across that?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. I've actually had a conversation with the Palm Beach County Traffic Director on this particular location, and certainly he was open to it. He wouldn't give me a definitive answer without looking at the data and doing the study, but he said certainly that location makes sense close to the beach. It's at an area that seems reasonable with the beach access right there. One of the things, and I've talked about it with staff too, is that would be helpful in getting this, if this is something that's desired, is on the west side of Ocean Drive there. There's sidewalk to the south, but not in the property adjacent. You can see the different color right there. So that's something you could add some sidewalk right along there, and that provides a little bit better connectivity there. So certainly that is, I think, a good candidate for a crossing, but certainly the county would want some kind of estimation for number of pedestrians that would use it.
Right, well, as you see, that's blacktop. That's a grandfathered in parking lot. And I would assume that if the usage of that space ever changed, there would be a sidewalk in front of it.
Correct, yeah.
But the fact that there is no sidewalk there seemed to be an impediment to the creation of a crosswalk at that location. And now I'm hearing is a more liberal policy.
Yeah, every one of these are independently evaluated, either by the county or by the DOT. So it doesn't preclude you from being able to do it, but it certainly helps your case quite a bit to have that sidewalk there. So because if we're stating to, the county that, hey, we're going to have a bunch of people cross the road here, and they're looking at it and saying, well, there's no sidewalk, where are these people coming from? It kind of hurts the argument. But with the parking lot right there, that it offers a realistic option, and it's something that if the sidewalk was added, that would certainly help.
Mr. Kelly, can I follow up on that? Is it a situation where we'd have to build the sidewalk in advance, or can it be a contingency where, if approved, we'll
Yeah, absolutely. That could be done at the same time. It could be part of really the same permit.
Okay. Stuart, did you have more questions?
No, I mean, that was I think the reason why we began this discussion, really, it's going around in a circle in a way, because there was a set of rules. We didn't have a sidewalk there, but I'm hearing clarity on and softening on the issue. I do have a bunch of other traffic engineer type questions, but why don't I let the sidewalk discussion proceed, and then we can, I'll take a second round.
Okay, Peggy?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Keller, for joining us this evening. I know this was brought up. I know I brought it up at some workshops a while back, and it was because many residents that I'd spoken to, and mainly families that were here in front of the lake, said that they didn't feel safe crossing over there. So most of those families were in the lake area. I know that there could be a possibility that citizens could find it annoying. Ocean Drive is one that you just kind of go down and you just kind of don't have to stop, but you have to kind of look at whether it's a safety thing and whether we want to provide that for our citizens. I have, did you say that the county will take some responsibility on doing the crosswalk? I mean, that's something that they would do. Let's say they're repaving Ocean One.
It's unlikely. I don't think it's something that, I don't want to say there's a zero chance of it, but it's something that if it's being requested by the town, they're likely going to look for the town to pay for. There are grant opportunities, and certainly you can work with the county to try to get it on one of their 5-year improvement programs. The TPA has grants for those as well, although sometimes they look for local matching and things like that. So I don't want to say that they won't do it, but it's not something that I think they're just going to throw onto one of their plans.
Right. And now that Ocean One is being developed, Joe, have we requested that they do that? Is this part of a requirement that we're?
Yes. Frank, can you update on that? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so staff has spoken to Mr. Tommy Franco, and he has agreed to create, part of the site plan was the creation of a sidewalk in front of his property. So what he has agreed to do is to do a crosswalk connection right where that dark blue line is, which will connect to our existing sidewalk on the corner of Kagan Park.
Okay.
And we are looking to match that crosswalk to look the same as the one on Celestial, which is the stamped concrete as well.
That's interesting because we were discussing that as a condition when we were talking about the site, approving the site plan, and kind of, it was advocated by some, rejected by others. But now apparently there's going to be a voluntary placement of a crosswalk at that location?
Correct. Staff discussed that with Mr. Frankel when we had our pre-application meeting for the building permit. And that was the time that we were discussing the road closure that's going to happen when they do the connection of the sewer line. So staff recommended that at that time, that would be the perfect time to add that crosswalk since they're paving the road either way.
All right, it's great. I mean, I personally had advocated for that all along the way, and I'm happy to lose the vote and get what I want.
You made it easier on me, so thank you.
But do I understand correctly that we cannot make that a condition? Or, because I thought we could not make a condition on roads or right-of-ways coming in, things like that. Has that changed or?
Well, the law is it has to be related to the impact
Has
of
to have
the
a
development.
nexus.
Yeah, the dual rational nexus.
Did we actually vote on that, Stuart?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, because I don't remember. But a couple of other questions. Len, is liability on a crosswalk versus having one and not having one? If someone crosses on Ocean Drive and they get hit by a car, is the town less likely to be included in the lawsuit, be able to get out of it versus having a crosswalk?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's not our road, so it's a county road. But you know, people sue regardless, but I don't think there's liability to the town. I don't think it changes one way or the other.
Okay, and then what is the estimated cost of a crosswalk and then also the flashing sign?
So the flashers with just kind of standard high emphasis marking, which is kind of like the zebra crossing, that would be about $15,000 for both flashers on both sides and the striping. If you wanted to do the stamped asphalt, a recent quote that I've got is around $7,000. I don't know if the town's got other quotes from that, but so about $15,000 for just your typical flashers and the pedestrian crossing.
Okay. Considering that Ocean One is being developed and a request or requirement is there to put a crosswalk in, I'm wondering if we want to kind of wait and take this step at a time, see how that one works. One of the things that if we are doing that, and that is a condition, when I think about Celestial Way and I think about it being on the south side of Celestial Way, which is where it's positioned here, it worries me a little bit because as people come into town off of US 1, they're driving pretty quickly. They don't really slow down till they get in here further. So I don't know if it's possible to put it on the north side of Celestial Way, which gives them just a tiny bit of time because they always hit our entrance to our town and go, whoa, I better slow down a little bit. So that's just a suggestion or a thought that you can take a look at. And then the other question I have for council is this something we want to, not for the Ocean One side of it, but is this something that we want to do a survey to see if people are in favor of additional crosswalks? I know that I did get that recommendation from the people down at the lake. I'm not sure about being closer to Donald Ross Road, and that location is really for parking. And there are people crossing there. I know you come from Ocean Ridge, and sometimes the Holiday Inn will come through there because they have that access. But perhaps it's something that we want to do a survey and say, would you like to have a crosswalk there? And I don't know if there's any detriment to having, you're right at Donald Ross, you turn, and then all of a sudden you're stopping. I'm sure that's enough distance, but just all things to think about and to consider.
I'll respond. I think if we've got a developer who has already agreed to voluntarily go in this direction, I think it's a good suggestion to let's see how that works out. Let's give the citizens and ourselves an opportunity to see if it falls into place and if it's conducive the way we think it might be. Then I think we ask for citizen input, and if it's adding to safety and it's making people feel more secure and it's providing more walkability and opportunity in town for that, I'd like to hear, if residents feel the same way, and we can look at more opportunities to do that. But since we haven't, we've got somebody sort of, a developer that was kind enough to help us test market it, if you will. Let's start there.
No, and I think I did mean that. We need to go ahead and go with the Ocean One. So I think you should, that we should probably go through with that. And in addition, Lenox Beach Plaza is going up. And there could be, as Joe and I talked, a whole influx of people that want to go into our beach, and you really can't stop them from walking down. And there's it's a little bit safer if we're going to have a lot of people. So no, I would agree with you, Jason, that we should go through with that one. But any additional ones, maybe use that as our first one and kind of see how it.
Yeah, I agree with the Ocean One. I think that's a bonus for the town. And also, I understand on the Atlantic crossover that it is a county road, Ocean Drive. So if the county deemed there was a need for a crossover there, then they would put one in, correct? And you're saying we need a count?
Well, I mean, if the county looked at it independently and decided that there was a need, then they certainly could. If it's something, it's not something I've heard the county recommend or suggest. So I don't think they're going to be initiated to do this. It's something that certainly, though, the town, even though I'm saying I don't think necessarily they'll pay for it, certainly the town can ask the county to do their own study and see if they would do it. I mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt. They could just simply say no. But I think what they will probably be more open to is they say, okay, we're okay with the crossing at this location. It's logical, it makes sense. In fact, we'll agree to maintain the pedestrian flashers once they're up, but the town is responsible for funding and constructing it. That is probably the more likely path, but
Okay.
you can always ask.
Right. And I realize with the money situation with the county, it's going to be very tough. And what you're saying is the crosswalk is $15,000 with the flasher, with the sign. And if you want it stamped, it's like an additional $7,000?
Correct.
Okay. I agree with the mayor and the Stu and Peggy to put that on hold for a while and see how it goes at the north end.
Just to go back to what I said about Ocean One, because when you asked if we came to a vote, the more I think about it, I think it died from lack of consensus when I brought up let's make that a condition. And I think we discussed it up here, but we didn't push it or press it, is how I remember it. We obviously we voted, but we didn't vote point by point on adding that as a specific condition. I wanted it as a condition. We just didn't go that direction. Do you recall how that went?
It became a condition, though, so I think it was a positive,
No, it didn't
right?
become, the point is, I began the
recommendation, I
discussion that
guess.
way. That despite the fact that we didn't make it a condition, it ended up working out
Staff
fine.
did it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good.
I have another thought. Since we're having Ocean Drive repaved, is it possible that you could locate these, have other locations where we can just stamp the asphalt without doing a real crosswalk? But no, you said you have to have the signal. That's required if you do any kind of paving.
Yeah, if you're doing anything to indicate a crossing, a flasher will be required.
Okay.
At least, and I want to be clear, at least on like Ocean Drive, on some of the other smaller roadways, residential, that wouldn't be the case, but on Ocean Drive, it would be.
Yeah, can I
Thank
ask
you.
a nice question?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Brian, if we were asked for stamped asphalt to the county, do you think they're going to ask for indemnification because it's different than painted?
Well, actually, I'm glad you asked that, and I did have a couple of conversations with the county on it. The stamped asphalt, they don't mind as much. They hate brick pavers. That's an issue with them from a maintenance perspective, but they generally are okay with stamped asphalt, but they do generally require that the applicant, or in this case, that the municipality, the town, enter into a maintenance agreement for the stamped asphalt.
I know it does fade and it does wear out. But in that maintenance agreement, is there any kind of indemnification that you recall?
I don't think there would be for that, but I honestly don't know.
Because just so everybody knows, the 60 feet of pavers, but not 30, it's 60 feet, that's required on our sidewalks, we have to we're in a indemnification agreement with the county on all those paver sections on Ocean Drive. So just want to make sure everybody knows that.
Questions? No?
It is 60, right, Frank? 60.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
One question I would like,
Go ahead.
thank you for the information on the sidewalks, which is why we asked you to come. When we were talking about electrification and undergrounding, one of the key issues was the right-of-way along US 1. And the question was raised as to whether it was technically possible or legally possible to move the transmission line, the biggest of the big. Because if we can't get rid of the poles on that strip, then the whole process is silly. Did that ever go anywhere with engineering? I mean, have we looked at, can we provide right-of-way for that line to go onto the US 1 side? And if not, how do we go about having that discussion?
You want me to, or you want to answer that? It was an easement issue, and we had to go into a further research if the council wishes to do that.
Yeah, there were, because we have to do title searches to see if there are existing easements and who owns and what encumbrances there are.
And then along the Donald Ross section, my understanding is that there's funding from the transportation, what's it called? Transportation Planning Agency
TPA.
for phase 1 to make the bridge 6 lanes, to go to Ellis and Wilson to 3 lanes on each side. And that basically is a restriping process. But the next phase, to me, is sort of an engineering issue, and that has to do with how can we retain medium, get 3 lanes for travel, east and west, have the appropriate traffic lanes, and get all that done. So to me, these are the engineering areas that I would like to see explored in the next year or so. And I don't know how we're going to do it, but I'd like to see Mr. Kelly at some point come back to our planning and zoning board and start there and have a discussion on those 2 specific areas, please. I'll have to get consensus on the council to talk about it, but where are we going to use our engineering, traffic engineering next year? That's what I'm asking now.
Do you know what we're talking about, Brian?
I'm not familiar with that particular project.
Unfortunately, we don't have that.
Cut
on
off
the
is
map.
just west, yeah.
Yeah, it's just west of that.
And I will say, a lot of times what they're doing now is the old standard lane widths were 12 feet. And what they're actually doing now, a lot of times in new projects, they're actually narrowing the lanes down to 10 and a half or 11 feet, try to squeeze. Normally what they're doing is trying to add a bike lane or expanding the bike lane. That's typically why they're doing that. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with that specific Donald Ross project on what's going to be done there.
And Stuart, this is something I'm going to talk about a little bit more also as we get into the agenda items and, the US 1 corridor.
All right.
As we get into the median and things like that. We
I
can
guess
talk.
these are just specific
Yeah.
traffic engineering questions with the overlap.
Okay, so for the agenda item, it was a discussion item. I think you have our consensus as far as we'll start with the crosswalk that is essentially
Ocean
by
One.
agreement with Ocean One, and we'll go from there.
Yes. Thank you.
And what about the Atlantic one? Or is that, is that going to just, what are we doing with that? Near the town hall park, what is the status of our thinking?
My understanding was the consensus was we're going to wait and see how that one is, see what kind of complaints, what kind of feedback we get from the community, and then look at.
Okay, that's fine. So I understand it.
Is that correct?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Brian. Happy holidays.
Next item on the agenda is the update on the audio-video services. Katie?
Hi. Yes, good evening, council. Per the request of council at the October meeting to have staff look into different options for audio-video services, staff met with Jim Scherer from Zebedee Productions, along with Mark Ruckledge, the town's IT consultant from Node Zero. Mr. Scherer from Zebedee Productions is here this evening to explain 3 proposal options that he has provided to council for your review and answer any questions that council may have.
There you go.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Jim Scheer from Zebedee Systems. The proposals are for strictly camera type setup and the ability to stream. So a couple different options that we were proposing. One was the first proposal was to provide some fixed cameras. There'd be like 6 cameras out there. Each one would be focused on an individual chair. We could project that streamwise on the screen as a grid that would show all 6. Could have your names under there, however you wanted to present it. Those would be fixed cameras that they're not going to zoom or pan or anything like that. And then if someone's individually speaking, we can select that camera to be the main camera that you would see on the screen. There would be one robotic camera as part of that package as well that would be in the back here somewhere that could pick up the audience, the speaker, anyone around here. And that would be, all of this would be controlled from back here. We would need an operator to control the whole system. That would be the first option. The second option was just all robotic cameras. There'd be like 4, probably have 3 out here and then 1 behind. And they would all be controlled by the operator. So you're basically selecting between cameras. Audio would follow along. All the audio would come from your existing audio system. We're also proposing to add another big screen TV up here so you could see what was being streamed. The computer could be shown up there, cameras, whatever you want to show. That's the first 2 options. The third one was just to do it a higher resolution, which would be a 4K package. It's still the PTZ, the robotic cameras, but they're all just a higher resolution 4K, which you don't really need. You're not going to stream 4K anyway. If you were just concerned about recording a very high quality camera feed, that would be the reason to go 4K. The other ones are just your standard HD, which is 1080p, which is pretty standard. That was kind of it. Any questions?
Yep. Sure, Mr. Chair, thank you. And I had a discussion with you today so I could understand it and make sure I knew all the different pricing. The one for $23,498 is the 5 council members, as we know. There's going to be one on our town manager, our wonderful town manager, and then the other one will be a robotic. And that robotic will be able to move in and out either on the audience, on the speaker, or wherever, the person that's directing it will want it to go. And then the other one has 4 cameras that are all robotic, right?
Yes.
Do you think, Mr. Chair, that we would need 4 robotic cameras?
Not necessarily. That's just to get you different angles and different
Right.
shots.
I think
I
that
mean, it
we
could
have
be 3. I think
Yes.
you wouldn't want to do any fewer than 3. You'd want to have one kind of a center shot. You want one in the back, and then maybe one to the side and then the way you can set this up is you set up they just have buttons that you could select. So you can have a preset that will take the camera to an exact location ahead of time. So the operator doesn't have to be constantly using the joystick to move the cameras around. Just the extra camera just gives you another view.
But option number 1, let's say, is the 6 fixed cameras. They're not robotic. There's only 1 robotic.
Correct.
And you said you think we should have 3 robotic at least. Is that what you said?
I would, yes, just to be able to get all the angles and to be able to select different speakers kind of in a quicker process, as opposed to if you only had 1 or 2 cameras, you'd have to constantly be moving those cameras to focus in on one person or another. So it just gives you a few more options.
So on the second option, which is it's $6,000 more, we're getting 4 robotic cameras,
Right. I mean,
which will zoom in on council members or zoom in on other people that are speaking.
Right. There would be a place, we'd probably have a couple, if we went with 3, we'd probably have two out here and one behind that could hit the speaker or anybody that's out here. I mean, obviously, you can add more. The control system can handle up to 8 inputs. So we would have, if you had 3 or 4 cameras, a couple of computers, all those different sources can be selected and sent out on the stream. You can do picture-in-picture where you might have your computer feed, if it's like a PowerPoint or something, and you could still have in a corner a shot of the live shot of what's going on. So there's a lot of different options you can do with the system.
And then I know I asked about the encoder, and we talked about there's a 14,550 annually and a 47,875, which is quite high. And you really don't need, you need an encoder, but you don't need to have the closed captioning if we have Zoom through YouTube. Is that correct?
That might be a question for Mark. I mean, because that's kind of IT. We're providing all the hardware as far as cameras, switching equipment. The encoder, that needs to be managed by IT because that's going to decide where the signal is going to stream to. So IT will manage that. The encoder is just a hardware piece. It's still going to need to be managed as far as where it's going to send the stream to. The other quote I'm not that familiar with. That's just other services, I think, right?
I apologize.
The encoder.
There was like a,
Oh, okay, yeah, so in addition to the AV system is just going to deliver whatever your video source is going to be. So if you're going to have these 4 cameras, whatever, that's just the contained system. Now, where do you want it to be delivered to? Do you want it to go to YouTube? Do you want to deliver it to a PEG channel? If you're delivering it to a PEG channel, say like Comcast PEG channel, like channel 99, for example, you'll have a specific encoder provided by Comcast at whatever their cost is, which will then deliver the video feed from the actual AV system to Comcast. Same thing with AT&T. They have their separate encoder in which you'll deliver the feed from the AV system into it, and it'll go on so on and so forth. Like right now, you're using this computer as an encoder to deliver the feed from that camera. So you still need an encoder. This is just the AV system, and then you have to decide where are you going to deliver your media to? YouTube, Comcast, AT&T.
So Mark, if we continue to use what we're using now, and that's Zoom through YouTube, we should buy an encoder, and that would still accomplish what we want.
Well, the encoder is just, there's different things you can do. You can have a software encoder, which is going to be a computer which houses software, just like you're doing now, which is going to encode your stream and send it to wherever it's going to be delivered. There's hardware encoders, which some hardware encoders strictly deliver to, like give you an example, Granicus. Granicus is a web encoder, and they would stream your video out to a specific Granicus site. It wouldn't go to YouTube or anything. It would just go to their site. So you need an encoder specific to where you're going to deliver your video feed. So in this case, a computer-based encoder, software-based encoder has more flexibility because you can deliver to multiple sources at one. The Comcast encoder will strictly deliver to Comcast. The AT&T encoder will strictly deliver to AT&T. But it'll take whatever your video option, AV option, and decide wherever you plan on sending it.
And eScribe here was an example of that because they can connect to our website if we want to use them to stream directly through the website instead of going through YouTube. And it was just I also have Blair on Zoom as well. If you want to ask him a couple questions about that, he is on Zoom.
I'm sorry, Caitlin, who is this?
He's with eScribe?
He's with eScribe. He was asked to join the Zoom because someone a council member had requested a couple questions to ask him. So he is available. Let me.
I'm sorry. Blair is the so-called territory representative for eScribe, although when I called him and asked him how big his territory was, he was in Toronto. So he's got a big territory. And I just indicated that we might have some questions to ask. Would he be available to answer them during this period? So he agreed to do that.
And I'm still trying to figure out if we use the same system we have, which is Zoom to YouTube, that's perfectly fine. We need to buy an encoder though to do that, or we continue to do what we're doing, and how does that affect the resolution to people looking at it at home?
So your current resolution issue is the restriction set by Zoom. Zoom restricts your bit rate and only allows you to deliver what they are going to allow you to deliver as the end product. If you were using a standalone software encoder, which there's several out there, you would take his AV system, say from Zebedee, and that would be the source of the video. And then you would then, let's say you use something like, I don't know, just a basic software encoder, you could deliver it at 1080p, the resolution at 30 frames per second to YouTube. It's just Zoom doesn't allow you that bandwidth capability.
A newer encoder would probably provide a better viewing feature, like video quality, than Zoom.
And Caitlin, what we have here though with both eScribe and Link is live captioning also, and that's why the pricing is so high. With YouTube, we get that automatically closed caption.
Correct. I was just providing these as examples of additional ways we could go with the new AV system and also purchase an encoder. I was giving it ideas for costs. And of course, any questions on services, for example, for eScribe, Blair's here to explain, because they go directly to connect to our website.
We provide an encoder.
They provide their own encoder.
Yeah, so we provide an encoder as part of the service. So it will live stream to your website and record and allow you to timestamp the video. So if you have particular agenda items that you want to link so that your website visitors can click on a particular agenda item, it will advance to that timestamp in the video. It will provide live closed captioning as well as recorded. YouTube only provides a closed caption once the meeting has been recorded. It doesn't provide live closed captioning. Our live closed captioning is also trainable to make sure that if there's any particular place names or proper names, we can train it to recognize those names or words and ensure that they're spelled correctly. And again, it will stream live to your website and as well show up as a recorded feed. We include an encoder as part of the annual service, and the fee of $14,550 annually includes the streaming service, the live and recorded closed captioning, as well as the encoder. So you won't be required to purchase an encoder from us. We provide it as part of the service.
And I also want to clarify that Zoom is what allows us to have the public participation. And that's why we're using it currently, because we would still probably need that in order to have public participation.
So we would continue to use Zoom and YouTube, which gives us our closed captioning. And
The eScribe service would provide the stream to you directly to the Juno Beach website, both as a live feed and a recorded video, and it would provide live closed captioning as well as recorded closed captioning. So you wouldn't necessarily need YouTube. As part of the proposal, I think, on the very last page of the eScribe proposal, there is a comparison between a couple of different packages we offer, as well as how it compares to YouTube, like what you get, what you don't. So that might be worth taking a look at as well. The big things for municipalities is that they will own their intellectual property rights, as opposed to YouTube owning those videos.
And this is an annual fee, correct? The $14,550, which includes the webcasting plus, which is the encoder and the closed captioning.
Correct.
That's an annual fee.
That is correct.
Is there any way to get out of the closed captioning of $6,500 and just use the webcasting plus for streaming?
Sure. If you want to take out the closed captioning service, we can remove that from the proposal and just charge for the live streaming. Yeah,
Reason that is because we could, if we still are going to use the platform with Zoom and we get the closed captioning through YouTube, you wouldn't. Okay, got it.
And for ADA compliance, you have to have the closed captioning,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Okay. I'll go ahead and let someone else, and then I'll come back to some questions.
I want to ask the gentleman from eScribe. You have a subscription fee of $14,550 for the year. And that's for a 3-year contract with a 2.5% increase each year, correct?
That is correct, yeah. And again, we can break out the webcasting only if you do not need the closed captioning. Sure, we can do that. So it would only be $8,050 annually as opposed to $14,550.
And now you own the equipment, and the equipment basically, it's obsolete in a couple of years with all the upgrades and all the technology, the way it's going. Do you automatically upgrade your technology for us on this?
Yes, so if we do introduce new hardware, obviously we're always working on our product to make it better. We're a software company that believes in continual service improvement. So when we do introduce hardware upgrades, you would receive an upgraded encoder at no cost.
And the contract price would stay the same?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Whereas the other two companies, I believe, were purchasing the equipment, right? And then we would have to do the upgrades once like I said, and usually in a couple of years, it's obsolete. You're with Zebedee Productions, is that correct?
Correct, right.
Right. Do you have a leasing program or anything like that on your equipment?
No, we don't. No.
It's strictly a purchase?
Strictly purchase, right.
Okay.
So I think as long as you go to HD, the 1080p quality, you're going to be fine for the next few years. If you're concerned about the equipment getting outdated, then you may want to consider the 4K, because that will be around for quite a while. It's just when we cut to streaming, it's not really a benefit at this time, I don't think, right?
It's crazy.
You guys could probably answer that better.
No, it's not really going to be a benefit, especially if you choose to deliver your video to a PEG channel. Your PEG channel, let's say Comcast or AT&T, and you want to deliver it to that. They are not required to provide you with HD channel. So some municipalities do get HD, but some don't. Some only get 480p. That's the bare minimum that's required of PEG channels. So if you had a 4K encoder or a 4K system, and as soon as it hits Comcast encoder and gets delivered to it, it's going to get dumbed down to whatever video that they want to, handle. So if they're handling 480, you're going to get 480 from Comcast. If they are handling 720, you'll get 720. But that's going, 1080 is usually the safe bet.
Could I make a radical departure here? And whenever I sort of get into these kinds of discussions, I say sometimes it's best to just flip the whole thing on its head. And let's, instead of getting stuck in the weeds on equipment, and one option is a purchase option. I mean, basically, you're building yourself a little television studio. Either way, you're building yourself a little television studio. But I think we really have to remember, why are we doing this in the first place? I mean, we're doing this because we've learned that there's certain advantages to connectivity, to connectivity amongst ourselves as a council, and connectivity to our people. And that's what we're trying, that's where we should be starting. So I suggest go to page 7 in Blair's handout. He's got a diagram there which we could start with. And it sort of shows the flow of what's going on. Now, because of the pandemic, this sort of concept of Zooming and Zoom meeting has become something that my 97, almost 97, she's got to wait another week, grandmother is doing with her people, and everybody's Zooming. It's easy. I've been on international Zoom meetings. Image quality is high. They may have 12 people on the screen as a panel globally, and it's just done. What are we trying to do? We're trying to say, let's pretend each one of us was in our individual homes, and we're sitting at our little computer like we were. Why can't we kind of connect in the same way as we used to when we were in that environment, and just put a little laptop in front of, that's where we started this whole thing. Why can't we use our laptops, hardwire the platform? These are all individual inputs into a switcher panel. And then this way we get what we want. I mean, the A option and I spoke with Mr. Scherer as well, the A option basically is an attempt to duplicate using hardware the Zoom grid view, which we all seem to like. I mean, wouldn't we like to be able to look straight ahead and talk to the public and yet be able to see the reactions of our people beside us? So the concept of putting 6 fixed cameras up there is really a hardware solution to take the simple little Zoom grid and put it back together again. And from the beginning of this, I'm just saying, look, I'm not a hardware guy. I don't understand latency, and I basically understand bandwidth. But I just say, why can't we do this? If any video source is capable of being taken into our system, a laptop computer's got a great little camera as far as taking care of the area which is in front of it. And these are the features that we want. And the other side is the one that Michael was talking about in his opening comments, and that's our ability to connect to the public. And I've participated in a number of, I've sat in on a number of council meetings. So I see everybody's got a slightly different way of doing it. But instead of approaching this from how are we going to build the system, I'd say, let's talk about what our objectives really are here. And we don't need to make this the NFL where we've got, instant replay, slow motion, 4K on the console. That's really not what we want. We want simple. We want the ability I want to see I want to see how he reacts while I'm able to talk to you. That's my goal. And if I were in the public, what I would want to be able to do is I would want to be in Wisconsin, and I'd want to be sitting up there and being able to participate in our meeting and be able to be on that TV camera or screen somehow. So I want to look at this as a goals approach rather than getting lost, because I'm getting lost in hardware. I think a software solution is going to be the right place for us. And I think leasing, and I think getting somebody who does this for a living, somebody who's recognized that this is there's a need out there. I mean, we're not the only ones who have this need. And the closest I've come to it is instead of just buying some equipment, I like the idea of buying the concept. So I would like to I would like to have eScribe, I haven't been to their website. I don't know if they have a demonstration movie or I haven't done any of that, but I think we should approach this from utility. Let's not just go hardware driven here.
I think, Stuart, the reason we're here is because we went through that process, and it's impossible for us to have laptops on our desk because
I keep hearing the word impossible.
But impossible from the town standpoint, and maybe you can.
Not practical from an expense standpoint.
It doesn't. Well, we'll let Mark tell us.
Are we saying we can't wire the platform?
No, it's not that. It's the individual computers, the microphones and speakers on each one of those computers would interfere and you would get feedback. So what you would do.
Pure video, I'm sorry.
Right.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought we were dividing all this into an audio. We're talking video only.
Right. So if you do video only, you know how typically when you're in a Zoom meeting, if somebody speaks, their square lights up, right? You wouldn't get that anymore.
We know
because, okay, so you could do that. Yes, you could, as long as both devices are the audio and the microphone and the speakers are muted. You can do that. But here's the key component. So it doesn't matter about the caption encoder. Now within your Zoom meeting, to be ADA compliant for everybody who's if you stay strictly Zoom, let's just do strictly Zoom. I believe Caitlin included a quote in the packet. We went through several different caption companies and sought out quotes from them that strictly do Zoom captioning for within the Zoom meeting. The lowest and most reasonable price we could find is they bill every 15 minutes, and it's, or they bill you 15 minutes, but it's $150 to $200 an hour is what they do for audible hour. So average meeting is going to cost you $1,200 to $1,800 for captioning within Zoom, and that's on the mid-range. It's about $3 to $8 per audible minute is what we found from the different suppliers. This was the most reasonable one, and that's just strictly Zoom driven. You're not using any encoders, you're not doing anything. This is just having your entire meeting within Zoom. And for municipalities, you are required to be ADA compliant and provide captioning. So if you go strictly Zoom without broadcasting anywhere, and you have everybody within that meeting, you still have to have a caption component. So it can be done, just as you said, with computers sitting in front of you, with them all muted and having one single audio source. You still have to have a caption component in that meeting.
Mark, did we also have a problem with resolution or something on that one? When we discussed it, it was like, it was not coming in, it was coming
It's
in
not that, it's
720.
using it as a broadcast encoder. When you're using Zoom as your broadcast encoder, which is what you're doing now, that's the delivery method. It's sending its data to YouTube. Zoom restricts your video quality. So that's why your video quality goes down.
So Mark, if you were to summarize this based on what Stuart said and what we're looking at now, can you just kind of summarize it for everyone? And, you know, we're at this point because we've kind of looked at the others, but if we need to go back to that.
So if you're looking for something, I don't know what you want as far as your delivery. Do you just want to deliver to your website? If you just want to deliver to your website, this service, eScribe, would be a great platform. If you're just, but you still need a camera. They're going to provide you with an encoder, but now you have an AV service. So what's your AV service? Are you just going to use this camera and use your existing audio? That's going to be what's being delivered. If you're still going to have Zoom meetings, your Zoom meetings are still going to be pushed through whatever device into their encoder, which will be then further delivered to your website. So you still have a computer component, which is going to host Zoom, and then that's going to go into their encoder, which will be then delivered to the website. Do you want to make this, say, future-proof and provide a platform that can be expanded out to PEG channels? Do you want to stick, do you want to go to AT&T and Comcast, say, channel 99? Do you want to only show it on YouTube? Do you just want to webcast? There's several other webcast components. It sounds like eScribe, the fact that it has agendas and so on and so forth in it. There's several services that are directly geared towards municipalities like Munis and what do you call it, Granicus. Those are actually webcasting services strictly built for municipalities, but they do not provide, they only go to their service. So just like eScribe goes to eScribe's, encoder, which goes to your website, same thing with Granicus. It would go to their encoder to, your website or, so on and so forth. So where do you want to deliver your video to? Do you want it contained within Zoom, and would you want to invite everybody into Zoom? Do you want to deliver it to an external source so that people that maybe don't want to participate in the meetings want to watch the meeting? It's which direction do you want to go with it?
Yeah, and Stuart, I think I agree with you on the, being able to see our fellow council members and seeing speakers and being able to see it on a screen is very positive, because it's very difficult to look at everybody here and you want to talk to everybody, but you still want to communicate. And then resolution is important to me. The resolution that somebody's seeing it, like when I've taken some virtual meetings and just some committees and things like that, it's sometimes hard to see. So that's important to me, but maybe that's something we all need to kind of go through, and maybe we need a checklist of what we want and kind of, put it together before making a final decision on anything. I don't know.
Jim?
No, well, this technology is not in my wheelhouse, but what is in my wheelhouse, I know what it's costing us now. I know that the equipment that we have now is paid for. I know what we have now is satisfying our residents' needs, and I'm not getting any complaints. And I know we're at the very beginning of this technology, and we're getting into it. We're like neophytes. But what I'd like to see is at our workshop in May, because then we'll have a full council, and I'd like to see what options we have so we can, it's throwing a lot of stuff at us tonight, and somebody who's not technically astute like myself, I mean, it's way over my head, and I really, I'm confused with encoders and all this other stuff as to what we need. And so I don't think we need to make any decision tonight. We have time, and we have a system that's working perfectly well. And it's a basic system. That's what we have. And we're looking to upgrade it. But I don't know if we should lease. Leasing to me, I'll be honest with you, sounds like the way to go because they're going to be upgrading it for us all along because that equipment's going to be obsolete within a couple of years. So that's something we need to look at too. And that's what I would like to do. I don't know how the rest of you feel. That's how I feel.
So I'm going to echo that sentiment along with, let me add on to Stu's sort of goal-oriented approach as he phrased it. My understanding is if we each had our own laptop and we're not physically located here in the town center and we were operating from home, with the Zoom platform, with everything that we have now, we would basically have what we're looking for. It's the decision we're making as a council to physically be here and operate as a hybrid type meeting. And I think we learned from a recent call that I know 3 of us were on that the majority of municipalities are not trying to operate any kind of a hybrid type meeting. The bulk of them that are working are still working remotely. Some of them are working in person and going back, and they're having difficulty with how do they encourage public participation in those in-person meetings. I think some of this is an outgrowth of the pandemic. Some of it is trying to modernize the technology and the approach we're taking. But we as a council felt like it was important for us to make that decision to be here, to conduct our meeting in this hybrid fashion and be here in person while still social distancing and still trying to maintain a level of safety for the public, for ourselves, for the staff. I think that we could easily, at this point, if we wanted to just get the goal of having the technological approach that we want, we could simply say, let's all stay home and operate from our individual laptops, and we would have essentially what we're looking for. So to the extent we're trying to do this in a hybrid type approach, and we're looking at figures that are easily climbing into $40,000, $50,000 plus, and looking at having 4 or 5 years and then probably having to upgrade the technology. I agree. Let's try to work through this at the workshop. If we're comfortable continuing in a hybrid type fashion through a pandemic that even with a vaccine coming out, we don't know when things are really going to change from a safety standpoint. If we're going to continue wanting to have our in-person segment of the meetings, I think we tap the brakes a little bit, continue to gather the information, and let's make the best decision possible for a long-term approach. Or if technology and that is really the goal and the primary goal, let's see if we agree as a council that that's truly the primary goal, and let's all pick up our laptop and conduct a remote meeting that would meet our technological goals.
Well, a new thing I've heard tonight is that Mr. Rutledge said that there's nothing to preclude us from hardwiring to the closet. And we could each plug in, if you have enough input ports. As far as the video side is, I'm hearing tonight that is technically doable.
Well, you would still need, if you're, what I'm saying is doable. I'm not talking about hardwiring. I'm talking about just having your computers here. Prior, when we did the test, the county did not have their circuit upgraded. We were limited by their circuit up at the fire department for internet services. After they upgraded that and replaced that circuit, we now have the window of bandwidth that can facilitate having all these devices in the same room. That wasn't at the time. But the one thing you have to understand, whichever way you go, there has to be a caption component to it to be ADA compliant. If you have anybody in the meeting, you have to have captioning in there. So even if you go strictly Zoom, and it's going to be self-contained in Zoom, you have to pay for a captioning service within Zoom. We're not talking about webcasting or going anywhere else. You're going to have to pay for a caption service that's going to be housed within Zoom so that you are ADA compliant.
See, I would like to have the ability to share my screen from up here, have slides that I want to show y'all. And I'd like you to be able to do the same thing. I mean, there is a silver lining to the pandemic here. There's no reason I see why we shouldn't be able to get this done the way we want it to be done. And also, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the main reason why we're doing it, and it looks like increasingly so, is to enhance town participation at a time when people are concerned about going out into the public. That's a very real concern. I participated in the Delray Beach City Council meeting. And I'll tell you what they do is they stop the meeting during each agenda item. They allow for a 5-minute public input timing, or they break, they get calls in, people record their public comments and they play them. It's done indirectly, but that's how, I think that one major set of goals here is public input, and one major set of input is what we want out of this, how we want to actually improve our experience. Because I don't like looking through plexiglass at Jason down through 3 layers of plexiglass. And then, at the same time, there's a camera over there and I'm totally out of sorts. It was much easier when, even if we have a meeting like this and I have a monitor in front of me and I have an array of the people and who's the active speaker, let's say from the outside, I'll be a very happy person. And I think it's doable. I just don't understand why we're having such trouble. I appreciate we're going to have to make certain hardware upgrades along the way. And I'm ready to do that. I think the vice mayor is entirely right that we need someone who does this, someone who's in the business of municipal meeting broadcasting. There's a business niche there. I'm sure people have jumped into it. And we have one example here tonight. I again say, I'd like to hear a presentation by some of the software solution vendors, recognizing that we need hardware.
I do have a public comment. I don't know if you're going to take them or not.
Let's go ahead and take that.
Okay. Give it just a moment. Dr. Klarjian, can you hear me? I do have 2 minutes on item number 4.
Okay, can I be heard?
Yes, we hear you.
Yes. My input concerns with the optimal use of audio. Yes. Everything okay? Hello?
Yes, we're here.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, great. The optimal use of audio video services in real time through website portal from the view. Yes, I can hear you. You? Can you hear me?
Your YouTube's on. Please shut your YouTube off. 2 minutes on item number 4.
Can we proceed or?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Yes, we hear you.
all right. My input concerns with the optimal use of audio. Yes? Everything okay?
He's still connected to YouTube.
Okay, okay, great. The optimal use of audio, video.
Supervisor, you have to turn the YouTube off.
Okay, all right, 1 second. Website portal. Review. Yes, yes. Okay.
Your YouTube's on. Please shut your YouTube off.
Yeah, 1 second. I will. Okay. All right, the YouTube is off. Are we hearing each other now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. This is one aspect of the technical difficulties that can happen when using too many connections, putting people into YouTube and waiting from the view of the people, and I'm sure that from the view of the IT people, that the simplest possible way is by far the better. With one click in the website or 2 clicks in the website that the participant can get directly into Zoom without having to go into YouTube. So everything is handled through one channel. So the proposal of live stream to the website, I consider it ideal. And through Zoom, the administrator can mute the people when it needs to be muted and can let the people participate. And in that way, you have a better understanding of the ambience of the meeting and participation in the meeting, rather than having to go to YouTube and coming back. That's far too complex. Also, eliminating the need of an email in which Caitlin has to send an email to someone, and then you have to find that email to get the link and get into the link. For people that are older, that's too much to ask. Too many steps, too many hurdles. So through the portal, through the website portal, on the inside details, click into Zoom, and then you are in. And then you can stop it, you can bring it forth. And so that simplicity of live streaming through Zoom into the website, I would support that 100% is the simplest possible way to help the people participate without too many hurdles that can frustrate people, that can frustrate the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Caitlin, do you want to explain why we do the Zoom and the YouTube? Because the YouTube, I think, if I'm not mistaken, has the closed captioning. So that's why we can't put everyone on Zoom. It would be nice if we could. Is there a component that we could get? There's nothing we can do with Zoom without purchasing this closed captioning.
No, that's what that paper she handed you, that's just one of the providers out there for closed captioning services within Zoom. That Vitac, I think it is, or Viatac. That's just one of them. There's several out there, but that was the most reasonable. Most of them range between $3 to $8 per audible minute, and their billing is some of it's really just ridiculous. But this one, it's roughly $150 to $200 an hour, and that's the average for closed captioning within Zoom. So it's roughly around $1,200 to $1,800 for a 6-hour meeting. And that's with any captioning service.
And then
We use Zoom for the public comments only because viewers like to watch it on YouTube and a lot of them haven't, they let me know if they wish to speak on an item or not. That's what we have the information on the website. If you wish to speak on an item, you can contact me for the Zoom information. They come into Zoom, and then once the item's finished, they leave and watch it on YouTube for the remaining. But YouTube's the closed captioning service for the Zoom.
Okay, thank you. And then Jim, your idea of having us all talk about this in a workshop is not bad, but at our goal-setting workshop, it's a little bit tougher because we've got so many things that we need to discuss and we really can't invite people in. And what if we had a workshop so that we can all ask questions and we've got more information, maybe sometime at the beginning of the year or even after the election. If
And
that's
that's
what
good,
you
and like,
choose.
you have a checkoff list, like you said. I
Right.
think that's important, because otherwise,
Right.
Yeah.
We have to know what our goals
Well,
are.
I'm certainly in favor of more workshops. I mean, I like the Tequesta model where they have a formal meeting and an informal meeting. So they have 2 meetings a month. And I think that it makes the formal meetings smoother, more collegial. A lot of the kinks have already been worked out during the informal meeting. I said all along, I would support it, two meetings per month. And this is the type of thing that we would put into a special session slot like that for this kind of discussion. Maybe we should decide that in March, whether we want to do that kind of thing. I mean, I'll do it now, but it's just a question of, I agree that we should have I'm lost on I'm totally lost on some of the hardware issues here, and I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall at something that shouldn't have to be that difficult. And now I'm hearing that the previous no's were really sort of, well, not really no, but maybe no.
Well, and I'm hearing there's also updates at the county level. I'm okay with a workshop on this. I don't know that we need to veer off into whether or not we should have 2 meetings a month.
No, I really
stay
didn't
on
mean that.
track.
I'm just saying since I support 2 meetings a month, therefore I support the concept of a workshop on this topic.
Do we want timing for the workshop? Do we want to look at possibly February or?
well, how much time, Joe, will it take for you to get together options for us so we can have that checkoff list? So we know what we're looking at.
I think these are the options. We're trying to get you every option there is. So I don't really have any.
Well, Joe, I think it's looking at what are our goals? Do we want to have, to see every council member? Do we want to be able to have everyone on Zoom versus, YouTube, which is so delayed and resolution is not that good? That kind of just questions and.
That would be helpful to get a consensus of what you actually all want.
Right.
That is a good idea. And another idea that I had was maybe you want to visit other municipalities to see how they actually do it. Because
Blair, can you do a presentation for us from Canada?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to arrange time to meet over a web conference like Zoom here or Microsoft.
Run us through the capabilities and what your service would do. And we'd appreciate that as a prototype of the industry, frankly. Thank you.
Sure. Absolutely can do that and provide some customer examples as well.
Okay. So we basically have what the options are. I think let's, from staff's perspective, if you work with Blair, let's see if we can get it on to next month's agenda, or let's see if we just need to schedule a separate workshop.
Or a demonstration with Blair, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And from a presentation or content standpoint, do we want to do it separately as a workshop, or do we want to give the staff the option of presenting it as an agenda item?
I prefer a workshop.
I would too. Can we do a workshop before our meeting? Is there anything wrong with that? Start at 4 o'clock, start at
Yeah, that'd be fine.
3:30, 3 o'clock, and then just go right into the normal council meeting?
Blair, how long would your presentation be?
To run through what we do, just webcasting only, and share some examples. Half an hour, 45 minutes should be good, just to get through everything and answer any questions, have some discussion.
And Joe, the list, if you do, and we can't visit, I don't think it's possible for us to visit all these municipalities. I think that's difficult unless we want to do it on our own. Is that what you
Yeah, I meant to
were
do it on-
thinking? Do
yeah.
it on our own, okay. But if we could get a survey of what everyone has and what system they have, I think you gave us something like that, didn't you? There was like we had Highland Beach, we had a couple others. But if we could get a survey on what everyone else is doing, and I guess it would be the ones that have upgraded systems like this, that are looking at doing a little bit more technology within their,
Yeah, we could send out a request on all 39 municipalities and see what they're doing and share that information.
I think the option for completely remote meetings is gone. I mean, the governor has waived.
It has expired, yeah, sunsetted.
So even though I'm hearing, we don't.
Some cities are still doing it. and
Some towns are still doing it, but it's in violation of the.
They believe in the home rule, they still can do it, but I'm not the attorney.
No, yeah, I don't think they can, but.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I
I
think
just
they
can't
can.
hear, Len.
No, I was saying, well, because, under emergency powers, you're varying a Florida statute. I mean, we talked about it in North Palm about still doing virtual, and I said, I just can't get there legally, but
Right.
some cities are doing it.
Yeah, they've declared a state of emergency or they've taken various steps to try to make it a compelling need, but, all right, well then, let's look at, from a scheduling standpoint, trying to do it either before the January or February meeting.
May I ask one question that might not be pleasant, but do we want to wait till May? Because having 4 of you up here, this is a big item. Waiting a couple months might not hurt. If you're going to make a decision that could be 4-1 or 3-2 or.
Yeah, but we're not talking, we're talking
But you're not
tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of thousands of dollars here.
just making a suggestion. I mean, I'm happy to do it in.
I think also
January.
keeping it as a workshop item and not necessarily an agenda item that, I mean, it's, I think we can hash it out as a workshop item and then see where we're going at that point from a decision-making standpoint.
Okay, do you guys want to pick a date tonight?
Can we do it at our next council meeting at 4 o'clock and have the workshop?
Let me check. The 27th is our
that good
next
for everybody?
meeting.
Yeah.
What's the date in January, Joe?
27th.
It's 4 o'clock would be tight, but I would be okay. I got a Seacoast meeting, but I should be back by then.
It does sound tight.
Yeah.
I sort of think we should do it on a separate day because sometimes our meetings tend to drag. And I think that if we separate it, it's just going to be an awful day. And it's too tight. I don't think you can do either one well.
I'm fine with it being a separate workshop.
Would February 10th work?
what if we did in January? Why don't we just continue in January sometime? We could do the 25th, 26th.
I don't have my calendar, but it's good.
Either one's good.
I'll be there.
Monday is good,
Yeah.
25th,
What time?
4 o'clock?
Yeah, 4 o'clock's good.
I'm good.
So the
Yeah,
25th,
I don't have my calendar. I'll let you know if I have a problem, but I suspect the answer is no. No problem.
And I would assume that all the candidates, or they would either be virtual or they would be,
Be nice if they
want to
listen-
attend that because, they probably should.
Be nice if they listened in, yeah.
I think something we're missing, a component we're missing though, is all of our options. It's so hard because we're getting pieces here, pieces there, and then, going back to something that we're hoping to do and it might be viable, but this is what we have to do. So I think we have to get them. This is option A, and these are the the screen in front of us and exactly what that entails and what the resolution would be and the pros and cons to that versus the others that we're seeing now. And the same thing with the closed captioning and eScribe. I think that would be helpful for us to actually have a visual on that too.
We can try.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Caitlin, you have what you need?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Blair. Thank you, Dr. Clarkson.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
What's the temperature in Toronto, Blair?
I think it's around 29 Fahrenheit right now. A little cooler up here.
Okay, thank you. Just asking.
All right. Have a nice evening, everybody. Thank you.
We're going to move on to the proposed quotes for landscaping improvements and branding opportunities for US 1 and Donald Ross roadways. And Tony.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I just got to take this off for a bit. Thanks. At last month's meeting, Councilor directed staff to touch base with some landscaping contractors, landscape architects, excuse me, to get some sense as to what could be done along the corridors of US 1 and Donald Ross Road to basically upgrade the look of the medians and the gateways into the town and get some sense as to what could be done to make the gateways a little bit more unique as people enter the community, and also provide more of a sense of community to the people that are coming into the town and living in, doing business in town. We spoke to two landscape architectural firms, George Gentili of Gentili's Gas, Holloway, Mahoney, and whatever other associates he's associated with, who was the architect of record for the Donald Ross Road median and gateway improvements, about what, Joe, 20 years or so ago?
Yeah, that one is a long time ago.
Or possibly longer. And then we also spoke to Rob Cutler, Cutler Herring, who has been, again, the architect of record for US 1, who actually did the work back around initially, I guess, 2005, and was also the architect of record when they did the 3R project back in 2011. Got some insight from them, but we also got some pretty interesting information in regards to the requirements that we would have to meet if we wanted to change the look and feel, basically, of the medians along both those gateways. Just like, we somewhat expected, FDOT standards have changed somewhat, and basically what we would now have to contend with, since both roads are FDOT owned, and in the case of Donald Ross County maintained, we still have to meet FDOT standards. Basically, well, in a nutshell, what the FDOT requirements are is there must be clear line of sight, 100 feet, at intersecting roadways, median openings, and any place where there's a clear zone requirement or a line of sight requirement. Now, on the US 1 roadway, most of the locations are in pretty good shape because, again, since they were done back in 2011, a lot of brickwork at those intersecting points now are at least 100 feet or in excess of 100 feet long. However, one little caveat in that along the US 1 is now the requirement is that no vegetation can exceed the height of 18 inches. So there are some locations where there is vegetation, again, within that 100 feet of the intersections or the clear zones where the vegetation either cannot reach a height of 18 inches. Apparently there's been some, according to Rob Cutler, there have been some incidents where municipalities and department, FDOT, have had some litigation because of that situation. Having said that, more problematic is the median along Donald Ross Road, where we clearly have some trees and plantings that are within that 100-foot clear zone area. And again, according to what Rob Cutler had said, is that in situations where you are going to replace an existing tree or any kind of shrubbery, you have to get permitted through FDOT to meet their current standards. However, if you were just to perform maintenance, basically exchanging a tree for a like tree, you would not have to go through the FDOT permitting process, thus not only saving the town copious amounts of money, but also a long and probably drawn out permitting process. So having said that, we did again ask both Gentili and Cutler to provide us some costs to at least take a look at what currently the medians on the roadways look like. And I say look like, how the trees are faring, what the vegetation looks like, how the irrigation systems and such are working, and just give us a sense as to how we can either move forward with a redo of the medians, or if the council desires, how we can clean up what's currently there and improve the look of the medians. Having said that, I open it up to anyone who has any questions, comments, concerns.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Becky?
I'll start on this one because this really came out of the US 1 corridor study that we had talked about, I think, at the last meeting, or it could have been the meeting before that. I don't think the vision or my vision of what I discussed when I talked about branding opportunities, it just wasn't the landscaping improvements of the median, but the entire US 1 corridor from where you hit it on the south and where you hit it on the north. It's the character of this town. It's what leaves us a lasting impression, so that it's so important. But I think, we're talking a lot about the medians. We're talking about, whether we should, we're going to, in the next agenda item, we're going to talk about actually maintaining those medians, which I think we should do. But I think this is a bigger project than that. I think it's something where we actually need to get a complete vision. We need to get a master plan. So I think that that's really important to do, and then you decide what you want to do. And the next agenda item, I think it's very important to maintain the median, and I don't think that we should go starting to replant or tear things out, not really knowing what we're doing yet. But before we even think about that and replanting, you would want to have the whole project as a whole in a master plan. I know when Lynn, in our October meeting, I was really pleasantly surprised when I asked why we went from 6 lanes on the south and 6 lanes on the north, and why we're only 4 lanes here. And you said, well, we have that width. Wow, what an opportunity we have to do something in our town and to really make a difference. And that's the impression we give. And have you ever driven into a small town somewhere and you didn't even know what town you're in, and all of a sudden you go, look at this. This is great. What city am I in? And you really look at it. So I think that what we need to do is figure out how to get there. Maybe Joe and Len, you guys can help us with that. These prices, I was a little taken back by some of these prices that they were going to charge, and they were just really going to inspect and evaluate the current conditions and to provide recommendations to the medians and right-of-ways. And, I'm looking for a bigger scope here. And
Are you talking about the right-of-ways? Are you talking about the right-of-way on US 1 on the east and west side, and also on the on Donald Ross on the north and south side of the right-of-way? I'm not talking about the medians now, I'm talking about the right-of-way. Is this what you're talking about, this vision?
Well, Len, can you explain to us, when we have 4 lanes, we have enough roadway there to incorporate bike paths, have distance between,
Yeah, I mean, you have the same width North Palm has. The North Palm's proposing to go, they have 6 now. They're really the only ones that have 6 anymore, but They have 6, but they're proposing to go to 2 travel lanes, a bike lane, and then a multi-purpose path for bicyclists, pedestrians, et cetera, who don't want to go on that. Because the bike path is actually adjacent to the roadway, and additional trees and landscaping and more creating a sense of place is what they're attempting to do in North Palm.
Right, and they've done that in Tequesta, and I think that's something that we should look at least start to take a look at and see if
Well,
we're.
the right-of-way is owned by the state, by the FDOT.
It's
not owned by
FDOT
GOV.
right away, so you have to get their approval for these improvements, but you have to work with them. But there's also funding sources like North Palm has been promised money from TPA, from the county TPA, to help facilitate some of these improvements. And they're doing improvements to US 1 anyway, so they'll incorporate, so you have some savings there, but there's.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting exercise just to get in the car and go up to the US
All the way
1
down.
bridge and start driving south on US 1. And I will tell you that Jupiter, it just, to me, there's a different look in the median in Jupiter than there is, say, as you come down through Juno Beach. And there's been improvement to the south. You go into Lake, just as even skip over North Palm for a second, but you go into Lake Park and even Riviera Beach is, they've put some trees in there along that median. And I know we have a wide space, just to begin with the space that we have there for this right-of-way space. And that's why, when I hear FPL say, gee, assembling the right-of-ways to move the transmission lines may be the most complex part of this, I scratch my head because I say there's a lot of space in that right-of-way. I think we really need to look at the corridor, the future of the corridor, not just the median itself.
And this is going to take years. This isn't something that's going to happen right away. I mean, it's a process. So, it'd be nice to start looking at it and begin that process. It doesn't mean we have to put any money in, it's something that we're investigating right now.
But I don't think you start with landscaping, I think that's where we're all going with this, is that we're really looking, I think we need to do a top-down, that's what we're supposed to do as a council, is top-down. So what do we want to do? There's a certain amount of width out there. It's not our width, but it's right-of-way width. And how do we envision using that optimally?
I'd like to ask, Frank, can you step to the podium for a minute, please? Are we limited to what we can put in the right-of-way by FDOT? And do we have to do anything like curbing or anything like that?
Well, FDOT is definitely going to have a say on what you do on their right of way. Similar as to what Mr. Kelly was mentioning, you do have to go through that process. They will see what you want to do. This week I've been driving down US Highway 1 to give that report, of density and setbacks, and building height for town council. I'm working on that. I actually took some pictures that I will share with everybody, and also some sections. So I think that's very helpful. And what Dr. Katz mentioned is driving down from Riviera Beach all the way to Tequesta, you do see every municipality, how it changes. Some of them don't even have a median. They just have a turning lane. Some of them, the sidewalks go directly to the road. In those cases, you do need a curve. So depending on what you want to do, FDOT will tell you, if you want to have a sidewalk next to a road, you have to have a curve. If you have some sort of landscape buffer in between that, whatever that may be, 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, some of the areas, even Juno Beach has a 20-foot buffer in some areas. All of that is going to dictate whether you can have a bicycle lane that's 3 feet, 5 feet, 8 feet, such as Tequesta, a 7-foot sidewalk, a 5-foot sidewalk, and the proximity as well. Just so you know, Juno Beach has a 120-foot right-of-way on US Highway 1. Some of our other municipalities, they go as low as 80. And that's where you have those municipalities that do not have a buffer, that do not have a median, because they need that turning lane. But we do have 120.
That's great.
It's a great opportunity, it really is. In the pamphlet that we saw, it said, who cares about US One? And they talk about US One being the public face and that we need to put our best face forward, which I thought was kind of cute. But if you've been to any destination and it's left a memory on you, it probably had great streets coming into their town. So I think, I want to hear from Jason also, but I'd like to just talk to Joe and Len and see where we would start with something like that also.
I'd like to hear from staff, and Len, you've just been through some of this with North Palm.
Right.
I'm certainly not in favor of spending $20,000 to just try to do what might be nothing better than a touch-up or a replacement. I think it is not so much on a bigger scale as much as just from a policy standpoint and from a vision standpoint, something that would be what can we do and what would the, from a cost benefit standpoint, what are we looking at to try to give the, we've got roughly 2.5 miles or 2.7 miles. I understand we have the Donald Ross issue over there, and that's a little bit separate for the moment, but what can we do in the 2.7 miles that would make it clear that the personality of Juno Beach and the town really would come through to folks driving through?
Mayor, if I could just add one thought. When the discussion was referring to, the different looks of different communities as you're passing, north to south, south to north, whatever the case may be, it's my memory that back in 2005, 2006, actually when I first started, they were undergoing some of the construction or the reconstruction of the medians. And my memory was that it was the vision of the council at that point in time that they wanted the medians to have a much more natural, full look versus what you see in a Jupiter, for instance, where it's much more manicured, more grass, but, more rigid, if you will, with a lot of the hedges where again, our medians are full. Again, unfortunately, they're starting to show their age, however, but the growth was in the hedges and the plantings were right up to the edge of the curb. So again, it was a different look or it was the look in the design at that time. So, again, I think that's why you see the different appearances in the various communities.
So I think the concept of kind of replacing what we have may actually give us more latitude than if we tried to do a redo and found that we were inhibited by the new rules. So since we were hoping, since we think that there ultimately may be a major renovation of the median, I think we should wait and just continue replace trees with similar trees, spruce it up, make it look nice. But let's
About Donald Ross Road.
Well, now I'm talking Donald
He
Ross.
was talking about Donald Ross Road.
Did I shift off gear?
Yeah, that she was.
You're on US. Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Sorry there, everybody. But yeah, on US one, I'd still do the same concept. I mean, until we're ready to make our move and do a major renovation, why not just work without permitting and just on a one-for-one like-kind exchange?
Yeah, Tony's exactly right. I do remember this 15 years ago or so. We wanted to have our meetings look more natural because they are adjacent to the natural preserves. We even had some islands that would want to put sand instead of sod, and that didn't work. So do you remember that, Jim?
I remember that.
You remember that. So it was a more natural look. It's a different look. But that's the negative. That we found out, we can only replace like for like. And if we go into there, there's a lot of vegetation in front of Ocean Royale that might have to be removed. And they wanted that as a screening. I think that's closer than the 100 feet, but I'm not sure. You agree with me? Okay, good. So that would all have to be removed. Any trees would have to be removed there. But in Peggy's side, we can look at looking at the whole thing, but just know what you're getting into, that it is very costly. And I'd love to look at what North Palm's doing.
See, North Palm, and we're in about year 5 or 6 of their process, but they hired Treasure Coast to do a master plan with citizen input and charrettes and all that kind of stuff. Now, their goal is a little different than yours. Their goal was to revitalize their commercial corridor. But it was, they did spend a lot of money up front for Treasure Coast to develop this plan. The lane repurposing for US 1 was just one component, but we've already adopted a whole new land development code for the commercial corridors. It's all form-based now. It's completely different than your traditional restrictive code, and it's all their whole code is geared to activate US 1, make it walkable, make it pedestrian friendly, and hopefully attract some activity.
And I think our desire is a little different. That component, we have a different component that we want to achieve. But I don't think that the medians, what you found out about the medians is a negative. I think maybe they stay the same. Maybe we don't do anything with them. There's nothing wrong with that because we're talking about right-of-ways. We're talking about increasing those right-of-ways instead of it just being dirt right now, Sandy, that collects things. And so we're talking about the bigger picture, not worrying about those medians, and perhaps they do stay the same and we just continue to maintain them. So
that's what we're saying. One side is you can replace like for like or change it to sod, but as soon as you open the door to change anything, that's a permit, and that everything would have to come up to the current standards. So we'd be losing stuff. You can file for a variance on a tree or so, and to me, we have an attorney here. You have two attorneys here. We take some liability when you ask for a variance, I would think. So
they would probably require it.
I don't like the idea of getting a variance if we want a tree or so, like Donald Ross Road. I love what Stu said, because a lot of those modules would have to be removed because those are with 100 feet. So I wouldn't touch Donald Ross Road, especially, but US 1, I would, it's interesting to see what North Palm's doing. If we can mimic some of that, it's very expensive, even for the soft cost, because why we went to Rob, because he has the base maps. All the base maps, he has them all. Why we went to George was because he has all the base maps of Donald Ross Road. It's very expensive just to do those base maps. So I would look at North Palm to see what they're doing, see if you like anything, but just know if you ask for a permit, you're going to lose stuff.
yeah, if we're grandfathered in, then you don't want to take out large palms. I mean, I don't see the necessity for that unless
They're going to require
if you start to change the median.
If we ask for a permit, you have to go to current. Nothing's grandfathered in, so that's the problem with them. Even the hedge material that's not conforming to today's standards, you will have to remove them and put in different hedge material.
You're saying that if we look at it, if we study this and we decide we want to increase our right-of-ways, they're going to make us change out the medians?
Yes. Any permit will
You're going to
trigger,
alter the rights of way, yeah.
will trigger to go to the new standards. That's why we were in the meeting like, wow, you mean nothing's grandfathered in? They go, no. Everything would have to, if any permit would trigger them to go to the current standards. That's why I don't want to touch Donald Ross Road, but there's not many things, just on your point, Peggy, there's not many things that would change, because Frank's saying there's not many trees within the 100 feet. There's Donald Ross Road. I think he mentioned something by the fire station. There's a gumbo limbo. There's a gumbo limbo
There are some shrubs that would exceed that 18 inch.
by the mobile station that would have to be removed. There's big trees, but not as bad as Donald Ross Road. Donald Ross Road there would be a totally different look if you had to take out those modules within 100 feet.
What's the best way for us to get a look or feel for what they're doing in North Palm?
Well, they haven't pulled the trigger on anything, North Palm. I mean, I could get you the proposals of what the different proposals are. North Palm, they're still deciding on the lane reduction. It's actually going to a straw poll to the electorate in March, because the council wants public input on it before they pull the trigger on the project. But I mean, they have renderings that I'd be more than happy to get for.
If they don't go to 4 lanes, are they still going to do those bike lanes and stuff?
If they don't, well, then it kind of changes. But there are options showing at 6 and at 4. I'll show you all the options. Yeah. Okay. Right now, it's at FDOT for feasibility review, because they had to move forward with that. Right now, it's 4 lanes, bike lane, multi-purpose path, enhanced landscaping, but there were, I think, 6 options, but I can get those. So you can get an idea of the different configurations, because I think that's where you want to start to see how it could be.
What was discouraging to me was when we went to Treasure Coast Regional Planning, and we thought they would be the cheapest option to get an end-to-end.
And they still might be the cheapest.
Still might be the cheapest.
That's what I'm
option.
saying. It's
But
costly.
The number
That's-
was about 100K.
That's what Joe said. It's costly.
It's
Yeah,
very
so-
costly.
So this is it's you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I would have loved to spend 20K for an end-to-end study, but 100 was too, we didn't want to go there.
But then when I met with Kim and, we looked at phasing out some of those areas, that we didn't have to do everything like that. And I think that's something we should take a look at, and maybe the price is different. And then we had it down to like 60, and then she said you can get $35,000 grant, and that brings it down to 25,000. So there are so many options that,
Right.
that we need to look at and consider, I think.
Let's get a look at the renderings would be
Right.
my suggestion, and
Yep.
let's see if, that's something that we find appealing, and see if the pun's intended, if we want to go down this road.
Perfect. Thank you, Len, for doing that.
Sure. No, I'll get those for you.
Invitation to bid for tree, palm trimming and pruning on Highway 1 and Donald Ross Road. Tony?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, good segue into US 1 again. On both Donald Ross and US 1, there's about 330 different varieties of trees. Up until a certain point of time, between my staff and our landscape maintenance contractor, we've been able to maintain them. But now some of the trees are, again, they're just getting, either A, too tall, or B, too wide, and we just do not have the ability. And our landscape contractor has parameters where he's allowed to trim the trees to a certain height, but these trees are now even beyond the limits of the contract. Having said that, we did solicit some verbal quotes and actually some written quotes from several contractors. We found out that it was much pricier than we originally had anticipated. So having said that, we opted to go with an invitation to bid. Sadly, there were only 2 responders to it, and actually some of the folks that we had originally gotten the quotes from did not respond. But the good part about it is the one low bid company was significantly lower than not only the initial bids of quotes that we had gotten, but certainly the lowest of the 2 that we received when we did put out the ITB. We checked the references, we checked all the documents, they're all, proper, they're all in order. And I even contacted the owner of the company, who's incidentally, he's a licensed arborist as well. So, it's he and the other co-owner of the company, both actually licensed arborists. And, I touched base with him. I said, are you sure, you know what you bid on? And he said, yes. They had both come up. They had looked at both the US 1 and the Donald Ross medians, and they were satisfied that the price that they had provided was reasonable. I also confirmed that there's got to be traffic control, MOT, and so on and so forth, and they were all in agreement with it. Again, it's all part of the contract as well. One of the other things that I wanted to ensure with them as well is on the Donald Ross Road median, there is a lot of understory, a lot of invasives, some of the bougainvilleas kind of running wild under there. So again, part of the contract included getting rid of a lot, as much of the invasives and, tame down some of the bougainvillea, get it back into, a good look, and hopefully get all the medians back into a good overall shape condition. And hopefully in the future, once I get some of my crew back and we got the equipment and we have the, full staffing again, we'll be able to go back to our regular routine maintenance and trimming of these trees.
Okay, questions for Tony?
Tony, the memo doesn't mention duration of the contract. I assume this is a 1 year, but then we'll reevaluate?
It's a
No.
one time.
This is a one-time.
A one
They're just
time.
going to go a
One-time
clean
contract.
sweep.
That is correct.
I'd love to see it done every year, but this is just
I
a,
see. So with trees, this is like once in a blue moon.
That's
type thing?
correct.
Yeah.
A one-time service.
I'm sorry. I didn't understand. That's why you didn't have any reference to time.
I think this is a phenomenal contract for that price, for what they're doing, 330 palm trees and trees and taking the invasive out in all US 1 and Donald Ross Road.
Correct.
I mean, this is really a great contract. And how long will it take them to do this, did they say?
He did not, but he said he was going to, he said, assuming that, council approved the funding for it, he said he's willing to mobilize right away. And of course, a lot of it depends on his other jobs, but he said, he'd give this his top priority. He did not give an actual time schedule as to how long it would take. But again, I didn't want to put the cart before the horse,
Right.
if you will, and, try to pin him down as to how long. But one little other thing I want to add, I did see a list of all the equipment he has. He has a full fleet of not only bucket trucks, but he's got lifts and, all the equipment, chippers and so on and so forth that, he'd need to do the job properly.
Good.
Tony, good thorough job on making sure he's $15,000 less than the other guy almost. That's unbelievable. Anyway, that was one of the questions I had. You verified the references because of the wide range in the price, but
Certainly did.
yeah, it's a pretty easy decision here, isn't it?
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to allow the town manager to execute a contract with Grassroots Complete for palm and tree trimming services on the medians of US 1 and Donald Ross Road in amount not to exceed $11,000 from contingency. This recommendation is predicated on staff receiving favorable references, the satisfactory verification of all required criteria.
Do we have a second?
can I say something
Yes.
Second.
for discussion? I'm not involved, I'm sorry. Tony, I'm just thinking out loud here. Maybe we ask for more money. There's those baby Majules in there that we always wanted to get them out. We always can get some prices. They're mobilized. Maybe if the council would give us a few more, just so you know, we have in those scrubs on Donald Ross, we have 7, maybe 6 baby Majules. And these Majules are not babies anymore. They're 10 feet tall and they're worth money. I wish I had one. So, but we have to get a spike truck. You ever seen those things? You spike, because the root ball is so big now, you have to spike them.
The tree spades.
Tree spades, thank you. And you remove them. That's not going to be cheap. So there's things like that I need to clean that, and might be a good idea to get some pricing while he's mobilized on some of those cleanup areas that are not in this contract.
So how much more do you want in the motion?
Can we do 15,000?
Okay, I'll amend the motion to 15,000.
Joe, can I ask you a question? So they just grew next to the
Yeah,
Majules that
the
are there
seed
now?
pods, they just dropped seeds and and they're that big after 20 years, because that one's a 20-year project. And those Majules are beautiful. Like I said, I wish I had one.
Do you have a place to move them? You're not.
We're going to move them to
somewhere.
our shop, and then we can use them whenever. I already talked to Tony about that. Eventually, we need to remove. He says, no, I'll move them over there, and we'll have an irrigation system set up until we need them.
We're going to run our own garden center.
Exactly.
Does the ecology group have any
Rolling Green
ideas
Garden
perhaps
Center.
if,
Right, we could put them anywhere, but
I mean, perhaps you can bring that up at the next meeting with the ecology group? Because I don't know how well they just stay out of, they're in the dirt still, but still you should replant them probably sooner than later, I would think. So, yeah, that's fine. I'll second that.
Okay, we have the motion. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony.
Can't get one for the town manager. I tried to get one for the town manager's house.
right.
Don't be stealing the jewels.
They're beautiful.
Employee insurance plans for 2021. Finance Director Matt Pizanski.
Come on, Len, stay. Thank you, Mayor, Council. The staff worked with Gearing Group, which is our agent of record, and obtained and evaluated employee insurance bids for the coming year. The renewal quote for our health insurance was about 2.33%. That actually was very good, but that did actually come with an increase of slightly of the deductible and out-of-pocket maximums. But, you know, again, for 2.33%, it was a reasonable assumption. So in addition to that, staff did get renewals on the optional plans. As you'll recall, what we'd like to do is provide a base plan and then also a couple additional plans for employees to buy up to. The base plan is strictly an in-network plan. So if your doctor, if you prefer a certain specialist or doctor and they don't happen to be in the network, we kind of like to give the employees the option to be able to do that. They obviously buy up to that plan and they pay all the upcharges into a plan like that. So it remains cost neutral to the town, but the employee gets, again, they just kind of pay for that additional benefit. In addition to that, staff is proposing to continue the flexible spending account. And then also with that, staff also is proposing to increase the in lieu of medical coverage. We have several employees who are either retired from other agencies or their spouses have insurance. And so what they do is, so rather than having, us paying 100% of their insurance, we offer them, and this year it's $248.86 to not be on our plan. So rather than us paying $700 for them to be on our plan, we pay them $286 to be off of our plan. So again, but we do require them to provide proof of coverage and things like that. But we actually have, there's 8 or 10 people that actually do that now. So again, that does benefit the town quite a bit. In addition to that, we did receive renewal quotes for dental insurance, and that was a 0 increase. And then also life, short, long-term disability was also 0, and then vision was also 0 for the coming year. So all the recommendations are being recommended within the budget, and happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Matt?
Good job, Matt.
That's a lot in a little, right?
Agreed.
Man, just an FYI for the council, when I was looking at this, the copay is 20%, just in case you guys, because I didn't see that on here. But Matt, just a quick question that I didn't ask you over the last 2 days. Did we actually have to change the Florida Blue deductibles and out of pocket, or was that just something when you had it reviewed by our plan coordinator?
The actual plan itself upped those, so it wasn't a choice for us. The plan that we were on,
okay,
they basically changed it, and then it's kind of like, okay, look, we changed it. This is the increase. So that was how that worked out.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve Florida Blue Care S 1451 HMO plan as the base employee health insurance plan. Solstice 11027 dental plan, UNUM insurance company life and short-term and long-term disability plans, healthcare flexible spending account funding, the opt-out alternatives, and other provisions as outlined for the plan year 2021, effective January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021.
Can we also, I'm sorry, real quick, the top part of that motion is approving the process of working with the Gearing Group, which is a process that council approves basically every 4 or 5 years, depending on how that works out. The reason we like to do that is because it is a large contract. And so rather than us going out to sealed bid ourselves, we work with our agent and council approves that process. So again, I just want to, we just like to get that approved as well.
So amended to working with the Gearing Group.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Matt.
Great job.
Council, thank you.
Next is the options for lighting the town hall park sign.
Well, at Town Hall Park, there is the new sign that was installed recently, and I believe it was council who had, or one of the council members who had suggested that it would be a nice look to have it uplighted. So I contacted an electrician that we've had, good history with, and he gave me a couple of options, and one was a direct 120 volt uplighting, running some wires from one of the existing poles, conduit, so on and so forth, in the fixtures to uplight the sign. Another option he had come up with was to put a transformer in, tie it into the existing electric, and then, again, conduit, trench, and a couple fixtures, but again, on a low voltage system. Third option was to come in with a solar-powered system. Quite frankly, I wasn't a big fan of the solar-powered until the town manager showed me how nice his solar-powered lights looked uplighting his trees. I think they're really great.
Hybrid. I have a hybrid.
But they do look nice. And we got some prices from Home Depot, and this is probably one of their better systems. Again, it's a small panel. It's not one of the, big obtrusive looking types of panels. Nice lights, and certainly at a much more reasonable price than the $1,900 or the $1,700. So we're just asking council for their consensus as to the type of lighting that they'd like to see for that sign at Town Hall Park. So, if there's any questions?
I think it's a no-brainer.
I was going to say it's a no-brainer. And I think, Stuart, you brought the sign lighting up, didn't you?
Yeah.
At the last meeting. So thank you for that, because that's a wonderful idea. And for $140, how can we go wrong, right?
So I'll make a motion to approve the Home Depot for $140.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Yeah, I was going to say, if they're on sale, you maybe get an extra one.
But you're lighting both sides, right?
Yes, yes. And it doesn't have to travel that far. It's a small sign, so it should be fine.
I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Was there a motion, Jim? And do we have a second?
I'll second. Oh.
Yeah, I want to second that one.
Go ahead, Jim.
I have one question. Is it protected so the landscaper doesn't damage it with a weed eater or anything?
We'll make sure. Yeah, we're going to trim them down.
That island's
so
pretty big, so they're not that close to it.
Oh, okay.
we may have to do a little adjusting with some of the, cut back some of the plantings and such, but not enough to have any impact on.
That's good. Thank you.
On the look. Thank you all.
Anything else, Jim?
Thank you.
No, sir. That's
All
all.
right, we had a motion, we had a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Take that out of petty cash.
Okay, update on estimated cost for the path at Town Hall Park. Andrea?
Mayor, good evening, council. I don't think you're going to be as happy with the price that I come up with on the path through the park as Tony's lighting proposal was. But sat down and crunched some of the numbers based on our engineer and the contract that we had with West Construction. This just gives council a ballpark idea of where we would be starting to do the proposed pathway that Rob Dinsmore had shown you all at the last meeting. So I'm here to take any questions and see how council wants me to move forward with this.
Questions?
Joe, I know I had a chance to talk to you, Andrea. Sorry, I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but I think Joe answered the question. I know we've got 990 square feet at $12 a square foot, and I think that was with the general contractor's pricing is what it says in here, right? So one of the things that I did is I got some pricing from a paving company. I didn't get actually an actual price, but we got an idea that it would be like $750 a square foot. What happens when you work with general contractor's pricing is they always up the price. So you get not necessarily a double price, but you're getting an extra fee on that versus working directly with the contractor that actually does the paving. So if you looked at a $750 a square foot, you could be starting at $12,575 versus that. So it could fluctuate. It doesn't mean that it's going to come in at 17,000 because that is a general contractor's fee included in that. So I just wanted everybody to know that. And the same thing with the curbing and the decorative pavers. Those square foot prices might be totally different if we actually got, pricing from that particular contractor that does the concrete work and the curbing.
That is the contractor that did.
Right, but
all
that's the
work.
general contractor, Andrea, I
Yeah.
think.
He
correct?
did all the work.
Right, I know that. But when you work with a general contractor and they get subs,
Using a sub directly, she's saying.
you use the sub directly, you're going to get a much, much better price on this. So this isn't, it gives you an idea, but the price on this could be a lot less if you went directly to the source.
Let me ask a question. I remember there's a little bit of a tortured history with the footers. Did we work with a general contractor for that, or did we work directly with a sub on that?
No,
No,
it was
that was
all,
the
it
general
was all the general
contractor.
contractor.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Peggy makes some excellent points. There's a lot of flex. This is just a rough draft just to get a feel of, it could be lower, it could be higher. But when you're dealing, you see there's not many subs here. So that when you're dealing directly with a sub, if we can get somebody mobilized, it should be less. I thought $12 a square foot was a little high too.
And Peggy, your thought is that basically we'd be able to, because the bulk of the cost is the sidewalk. Your thought is that that 11,880 goes down by almost half?
Yeah, they were talking about 750. Now, we don't have a quote on it. We'd have to do that. But until, I think we should go directly to those contractors, let them look at it, give them an idea that it's 990 square feet. For me to get an actual quote in writing, he said he just wanted to come out and look at it. And so I could do that, bring it back at the next meeting, or we could have staff do that. Actually, I'm really not allowed to do that. So I could give the name to Joe and Andrea, and then maybe we could look at a couple other people, and they'll give you a more accurate square foot price, I think.
What's more important is, do you want to see this happen? Because Tony and I handle small jobs like this is we wait till somebody's mobilized, the contractor we're already using, like the dune walkovers, we're pouring some sidewalk for that project. Then we say, how much to do this little project? It's not a big deal. When you have somebody mobilized, they put some more concrete in the truck. So it's more getting the engineering, the little survey, get to be prepared, and then us to look for a little job. Right, Tony? Exactly. So I wouldn't look at the numbers. It's somewhere between 12 and 20,000. It's do you want to see it happen?
I think that your position is well stated, and the answer is, I think that the value that the pathway adds to the park warrants the costs that were in the ballpark that we're talking about. So I support the installation of the sidewalk.
I'm not opposed to it, but I've got to say I haven't had anybody, we all get calls and emails, and I haven't had anybody that's reached out for that particular issue. And I phrase it a little slightly differently. I've had more people reach out to me over Shen Yun than the pathway in the town hall park. So I guess I'd want to hear from residents and see what kind of input we got from them. And if they feel like it would be a positive, I'm not opposed to it. I just haven't heard anybody calling out for it, but that could be a matter of, once it's presented, they see the merit in it or not, I guess.
Well, we've come to the conclusion that the utility of the park was I didn't try to get Rob to say that. I think Rob said that adding this particular pathway adds value to the park. So one way you could say is, does it add 12,000? Does it add 20,000 of value? Like with so many things, we build it and they'll use it, that sort of thing. I look at it as it enhances the space we already have. It's the logical add-on. It was, my sense is that I'm in favor of the project. And yet I understand what you're saying. I think we have to have a little bit of vision here and go with we engaged a landscape architect to say, how might we enhance the space? This is what he said. So I like it.
And to your point, Jason, I think that we get a lot more people commenting on it because of where we live. So you get a little bit more, because of your location in town, which is kind of good because we all live in different parts of town. So we always hear from our constituents and they talk about the areas that they live in. So, that's what I have been hearing, from the people that live all around that area, and the enjoyment of having to go to the park, but not being able to have access to the back of the park at all.
Jim?
Yeah. Several years ago, when the Town Hall Park was approved by council, it was approved as a low-maintenance passive park. Today, the monthly landscape bill is $225. The monthly electric bill is approximately $20. The monthly water bill is approximately $300. That's a total monthly bill of $545. $545 per month is not low maintenance. The town needs to definitely explore the cost of well water versus city water. Town Hall Park is a small piece of property. It's less than a half an acre. Juno Beach is all about green space and open space. To add a 5-foot wide concrete path around the perimeter of Town Hall Park makes no sense. So I would not support it. I'm definite about that. I think it's a waste of money. I'm done.
We thought so.
Drop the mic. That was on my. I hear dead silence here.
But how do you really feel, Jim?
Yeah, how does he really feel? Jim, sir, he's sort of wishy-washy.
Further discussion, or is there a motion?
Yeah, I would move that we appropriate $20,000 to cover the installation of a sidewalk on the west side and the north side of Town Hall Park, as we have just discussed.
And I'm going to second that with the understanding that I don't think it's going to cost up to $20,000. I think it's going to be a lot less. And so I'm in favor of it. Also would like to start to look at some of the other parks, Kagan Park. There might be some improvements we can do there from a landscaping standpoint. And I think we should look at them all, not just one, but others, at least Kagan Park in town. So, but I'm in favor of this.
So we got a motion, we have a second.
Discussion.
For discussion purposes, Peggy, I guess I'm going to come back to the point that I made. I'm not opposed to it, but I'm not currently in favor of it unless I see some evidence that there's a desire by our citizens. Stuart makes a good point that we've got, Rob's input and it was somewhat favorable on this point, and that he thought it would enhance the park to at least some degree. I get that. I would just want to hear from residents that are in favor of it. And at the moment, I'm not going to vote in favor.
I'm sorry, is that a yes or a no?
It's going. I'm going to vote against it this time.
Okay.
So,
And then could you tell us what you would like them to do? Call you personally or write to you or email you?
they can send an email to Town Center that they'd
Okay.
be in favor of it. And,
Okay.
let's see what kind of feedback we get. All right, so all in favor
Aye.
and opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Motion fails.
Mayor, can I ask one thing?
Yes.
Okay. Joe, can you find out about what the cost of a well would be to put a well in there? And, because there's no, you know, when you have a well, you don't pay for water. So, I mean,
The problem, why we were a little hesitant on the well, and just so you know, that this year, we should have probably used less water, because after it's established, you can reduce the water. Obviously, during rainy season, you probably could shut her off. But the reason why I'm not thrilled to get a well there is because everything is white. And when you have a well, most likely you're going to have a rust issue. So I'm very concerned about that issue. Believe me, I want to save money every day, but I'm concerned about that rust aspect of it on something that's so pristine and so white as that park is.
And rust is a big issue. I have a well, and we're constantly out there removing rust.
you can't do salt or anything like that to?
No, we put feeders in, and there's anti-rust feeders that we put in, and it works somewhat. We have a contract with somebody every month. And you can get a well that it's in the ideal zone where you never get rust if you luck out, but it's either rotten eggs or it's rust. And then there's an ideal area. So you're going to get most likely rotten eggs smell, or you're going to get the rust, or you're going to get ideal. And you want to throw the dice in ideal? It's a $6,000 explanation. Don't you agree? At least.
For what? For the
well. And
Oh, I
for
think it's going to be more than
the
that.
well and the pump and
Oh,
everything like that.
you're way up there. I'd rather see the sidewalk.
That's just 2 years of.
Now that everything's established and you have a lot of trees that are not needing that much water, I'd like to see it cut back, and we'll work on that in the summertime, during rainy season.
Okay.
If that's an answer to your question.
Okay.
Next item is the resolution number 2020-11, agreement for vote processing equipment use and election services with the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections. Caitlin?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we do this every year. This year, there was a little confusion, which is why you received an updated memorandum. It's similar as to last year. They just want to specify if we wish to continue to use the vote by mail services. The ballots for this upcoming election will be $5.50 each, but we have used it in the past previously, which is why I put an updated memo on the dais there for you. So it is similar, and if you have any questions, we just, in the motion, have to specify if we're still opting in or out of the vote by mail services.
Questions for Caitlin?
No, I think if this is the same process we've been going through, and they've charged in the past, as Caitlin said, then,
Status quo.
they just want us to acknowledge the fact that we're going to be charged for it.
Right. The difference this year is they asking for us to.
And you might just get more because more people might be,
Maybe they're making us aware that you might get a bigger bill. Right.
yeah, might be a little costly, but.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-11, approving an agreement for vote processing equipment use and election services with the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections and opt-in of the optional vote by mail service.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Caitlin, for navigating through that.
Okay,
There was a
comments from the town
navigation.
manager?
Yes. First, I want to say how pleased and how thankful I was to all of you and staff and all the residents about our holiday parade. I thought it went well, and I heard a lot of appreciated residents, and so I just want to thank everybody. I thought it went well. Second, I got some good news, I think. We've been researching grants now that we know the scope of the littoral shelf. And it came up that we can actually add in, even though there are different property control numbers, this site versus the lake, we can probably apply for a grant through Land, Water, and Conservation, which is a state grant, and put those two projects together. And it's up to $1 million, believe it or not, on a 50-50 grant. And our grant consultant has answered all my questions so far. We haven't finished our research, but right now it's looking very good that we're a good candidate to get everything covered 50-50. on those two projects. So I'd like to do that. Obviously, there is only one little negative. The one little negative is always a negative, right? Positive is the, both will be covered at 50/50. The one negative is nothing's covered until you're awarded the grant. It's always a problem with that. So you have to wait, if you want to wait, to have eligible expenses. So we can't, it's not a problem with, I don't think, with the littoral shelf, because that's 2022. But we had the two Robs coming in January to go over their plan and to start on the backyard project here, the community center. So maybe we want to pump the brakes, as Caitlin said. Maybe you want to wait a couple more months after that, or start it in the summer, or start it later, because we will not be reimbursed until we sign a contract with the state. Once we'll know we'll get awarded sometime in July. Probably in July, we'll know if we are awarded. But does it make sense to postpone it? That's up to you. We can still go ahead and plan this project, but it might be beneficial financially if we pump the brakes a little bit. Does that make any sense to anybody?
Yeah. Are we all in favor of moving forward with the plans, but holding off until the grant opportunity would be?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Joe, you can get everything ready up to that point and then just wait on the grant, correct?
No, we can't incur expenses. So if I have Rob and Rob come,
To do anything.
even though the soft costs are limited to 15% to get into the weeds of this, but it's going to limit how much we're going to get back if we start early. So
Okay, yeah.
I think we should do the topo, which is only $2,500, not a big deal. But after that, I think financially it makes sense to hold off a little bit.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Thank you.
So we'll cancel the two Robs. They'll be happy about that.
I'd say reluctantly, we accept the wisdom of what you're saying.
Yes. Well, thank you. And it's good news. And do we need to do anything with Ryan now? Because the grant proposal, it's roughly $3,000. It's pretty in-depth grant proposal. It's probably going to be around $3,000. We'll have that on the consent agenda next. Anything I missed, Andrew? Okay. That was the good news.
Okay. Comments from the town attorney?
No, ma'am. Just Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, I guess. Won't see y'all till January.
Comments from council? Stu?
Let me start, I'll start.
Go ahead.
All right.
Staff?
Oh, staff.
Well, first of all, I thought
I'm sorry, I skipped comments from staff. Sorry, Matt.
I'll defer.
Oh, Matt's
Real
talking.
quick, just to note that the Planning and Zoning Board meeting for January was changed from the 4th to the 11th. You should have received the updated calendar. If not, just let me know. And also, the town center will be closed on the 24th of December, the 25th, and the 1st of January.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah, you need to be plugged in.
Sorry about that. Keep bringing it. I asked to speak and now I'm dead in the water.
You're dead.
Sorry about that. So I had, Mayor, Council, I had sent an email the other day, was it yesterday, today? Reference
Yesterday.
the nice signs that we have up here, the interpretive signs that the Landmarks Advisory Committee has been working on. The reason that they were kind of late notice was, the group's been working on them almost weekly. So then we sent them off to our graphic design artist, and so she kind of put them together for us. The group actually saw them pretty much the same time you did, because we just got them yesterday. Finally got the. Hang on. Yeah, we got the drafts just yesterday. But again, as you know, it is an advisory committee, and so we need to get council's input on that, or approval thereof. And as I fumble through this, I'm going to bring the up on the screen up here. Screen mode. So,
The color, where's the color?
yes, there will be color. Most of the photos are black and white. Remember, this is history. Remember, it's history. History stuff's black and white. There will be some color. Actually, we had all of our other signs that we actually did, because I was speaking with the graphic artist, and all of the previous signs that we had done, everything was black and white, because everything was the Celestial Railroad, which was the late 1800s, the Juno Beach, the original pier, which was from 50 to 84, and then the old town hall. And so all those were black and white. So she kind of went with a black and white theme, but there will be some color variations. Some of the photos will be color. But again, it's just kind of to give council, the idea of, what our signs are looking at, what the group has been up to. And so we can wander around and look at the different signs. Really, it's just kind of to give council the
Committee did a great
the privilege to see these and hopefully, kind of give your blessing as to, yes, we love the idea, we hate it, kind of give the committee some direction. As you know, the committee is Councilmember Wheeler, Dee Dee Halpern, Kathy Fay, Sophia Gill, Jim Ferguson, Bruce Franson, and Roger Buckwalter. And actually, Roger Buckwalter's mom is actually in this group right here. She was one of the original namers of the streets in Juno Beach. And if I remember which one he said, I would circle her. She's one of those in the middle there. But anyway, Roger's mom is in the photo. He pointed it out. He was so excited when he saw the photo, actually, when the first times we were at the meeting. And he said, "Oh, look, that's my mom. My mom said, there's my mom." It was kind of neat. So anyway, the group's having a good time with this. Again, the committee's kind of just looking for, and again, we can take time to do this. The committee is actually going to review them next Tuesday. And then, we have to send them off to the state to make sure the state is good with them. Those are part of the milestones that we talk about with the grant. So they have to approve it. There is language at the bottom that basically states that the project is sponsored in part by this Department of State Division of Historical Resources in the state of Florida. So that said, you can take all the time again to look at them over the next few weeks if you like to. If there's certain things you like. I know Jim commented that he thought there should be an additional one, but anyway. So any comments or suggestions, or again, I just wanted to bring a few of them up for you all to see and see what the group is up to.
I have to make a comment because Matt's obviously chairing us every time and we're going through the agenda and Jim's up here with his computer and making the changes, and then he's got all of us adding comments and critiquing. And so we've done that at least 3 meetings, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
But it's been fun. It's been a fun job. The pictures are amazing. The wording's amazing.
Yeah, I think they're so cool.
I just thank Matt.
I just want to clap. They're
Matt
awesome
and Jim.
job.
Yeah, so like I said, any input, again, the committee will.
Oh, you read them all already?
Sorry, Len. Yeah, did you get them? Yeah, Len was the first one to respond back. He said, these are great.
I think they're awesome.
I just think
Are we going to
thing is
display
Yeah.
these, or are we going to have them out on this, on the pathway somewhere?
Yeah, so actually, okay, and actually, it's interesting, Jim had mentioned that where are they going to go? So the committee hasn't exactly decided, and that'll be something that we will propose to council, say these are some of our thoughts. But for instance, the Greenbrier and the condo will probably be over near the Greenbrier, south end of the lake. The one with Eleanor Fletcher, let me bring that one up, because that one is really special.
I learned so much from these.
You read them all?
I read them all. I
Oh,
love
gosh.
this stuff. And I just thought it was so great. It's so great to have all the history.
This one here, as you know, is the Turtle Lady.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And so this is Eleanor Fletcher, who started the Marine Life Center, which was the Children's Museum, which is the predecessor to the Marine Life Center. So if not for Eleanor Fletcher, the Loggerhead Marine Life Center probably would not exist. But she actually started, her tours and her little museum, which is in the photo to the left on the second one on the left on the bottom, actually at 350 Celestial. So it's right here at the end of Mercury Road. So we want to put that one right outside, right at the end of Mercury Road, the west end of Mercury Road, basically looking at, at the building and saying, that's where she started the Marine Life Center. That's where she started the Children's Museum, which, eventually became the Marine Life Center. So again, that would be a location that we would suggest. There's some on the condos, the motel area. We're probably looking at like Atlantic Beach walkover. There may be one on this site. So we're going to have them around town because remember a couple of the other elements of the program are the interpretive signs, the walking tour. We plan on having a mobile app so that you can have it on an app, and then you can go, oh, where's the next sign? Well, it's, you follow the little line and it takes you to the next sign. And then not only just the 7 signs plus the 3 that we already have, there'll be other locations that just kind of have general information about things there. Maybe we'll just be talking about beach-bound, the community over there, or the other historical district at Zephyr Way or Saturn Lane or something like that. The highest point on the ridge, over near the old Town Hall Park and things like that. So there'll be some other points of interest, that we'll point out along the way. But so those are some of the other elements that we plan to get done in the next 6.5 months.
Great.
So with that, if we could get just a consensus that you're of approval and to move on, a good land.
Move on.
Well, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, how about two
Because it's the
thumbs up and
advisory
a move
committee,
on,
so
yeah.
it's kind of just for us to kind of continue. So yeah.
You just making sure you're on the right path, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think they're cool.
I think the town owes the historical committee a big thank you because they
Yeah.
put so much time and hours in this. Peggy and every group.
Everybody.
It's phenomenal. Really, it's
Looking
great.
through all those photos.
Thank you.
I think it deserves a clap. It's an awesome job
I
you're doing.
agree.
And I think the high moment of the year was the night the Historical Society gave the Celestial Railroad reading here, that sort of mixed media reading.
Yep.
I mean, that was pre-pandemic, but I think that wins the award, frankly. That was a great night.
That was awesome.
Sure. We plan to do another. We had planned to do another one, obviously, but
Should've
maybe
filmed.
20.
That was a
22.
mistake. We should have filmed that event.
Yeah, well, we're learning.
We're learning. But thank you again.
Very good.
Thank
Okay.
you, Matt.
Yeah,
I mean,
thank you,
awesome job.
Very cool.
I really love them.
Me too. Oh, that's great.
Comments from staff?
Mr. Klarjian on his Zoom interview has mentioning something about having the budget on the website. It is on the website. It's required to be on the website. Yeah, it's required to be. And so it is there. So I just wanted to point that out. So again.
Okay. Stu, comments from council?
Oh, okay. I want to talk about a couple of happy moments. And
No.
I think happy moments are always good.
Hold on, Stu.
I'm still being punished.
Right, every time.
I'll speak at the next meeting.
I promise I'll be brief. I just want to give you a quick update on the beach renourishment project. I just received an update from the project manager from yesterday. Basically, the dredge, it's called the Liberty Island, has been delayed by weather up in the northeast. So now the new ETA is supposedly going to be the first week of December 21st, or the week of December 21st. They're doing the mobilization of the equipment and the piping from the staging area starting on the 14th. They expect that to take about 6-7 days, and, there should be probably going to be some delays for vehicles on Ocean Drive in that vicinity, but apparently they're because of the moving of the equipment and such. But I guess they've been talking to the police department in regards to that to ensure that, they keep the traffic flowing as best possible. And they also are going to put out some signs. There currently are some signs to, alert people to be careful with the equipment, and they will increase the signage and the warnings, as the more equipment and such is using that ramp across from the Marine Life Center and accessing the beach and going onto the beach. They also did say, although it's up in Jupiter, that they did have the northern subline installed already. So that's the line coming into shore. So that's a good sign, just north of the pier. And again, all the safety signs posted and so on and so forth will continue very vigorously as work progresses. Any questions? They will have a meeting every Tuesday, just to keep everybody up to speed. So we'll be in the loop.
Now, they were planning on it being fairly tight, working 24/7, and that was with a start in early November.
That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're expressing concern.
That's correct, yes.
I think I forgot to mention Karen Leahy, who does all our minutes and stuff at the Landmarks Advisory Committee meetings, and she attends everyone as well, so I'm not sure I mentioned her.
Okay, Stu?
One more thing. Stu gives up.
Well. Who's next? So first I want to tell you about a very happy moment I had yesterday when there was the town's Pelican Lake workshop. And I'm sitting over there in the corner doing I'm just in the corner and I'm watching this go on. And I'm just tickled pink delighted that we finally had such a symbiosis, I guess is the right word in this context, the staff with Tony writing emails before we even had discussion, that staff's, instead of resisting input in a way from the town, just recognizing that the people who are in the town just have value and want to do the best thing for the town, and to watch this all kind of unfold, it just made me so happy because, there was a lot of headbutting going on to kind of get to this point, and no matter how we structured it or committed it or whatever, the point is it's happening, and it's happening for the best interest of the town, and it made me happy. So I wanted to let you know that I was happy for a change. And then in my more natural state, I got sucked into really a witch burning that was going on down in Delray Beach. And what happened when I picked up the story was that Rob Long, who is a member of their planning and zoning board, had been told by the town council last month that unless he retracted his witch-like statements, that they were going to fire him. And this all had to do about something called PFAS that nobody knows about.
I know about that.
Well, maybe I should. When I say nobody knows about it, it's an emerging ecological nightmare.
Since the 1940s, I believe.
It's been around for a while, this stuff. I didn't want to make this an ecology talk, really. The point is, there's some bad stuff out there. We talked about this actually at the League of Cities, Public Works Utilities, Natural Resources Committee. I didn't report on it because it wasn't one of our priorities. I mean, we just thought this stuff was so far out there and at the edge of the radar screen that our attention should be on more important things like water quality, water availability, and that's what I reported on. But anyway, Rob Long's, who has subject matter expertise as well, because I believe he's on, was it South Florida Water District? He's the chair of that district. He's chair. I don't know how much of the district, but the point is, here's a guy who's knowledgeable on the subject, and he's reporting information that had been reported that, oh yeah, we've got some of this stuff in our drinking water. Now, it's not illegal because the state hasn't set any standards. So they have a health advisory out there, and the reported parts per trillion in their water supply was actually 49, where this voodoo number is at 70. Of course, but the town's council was livid that he was bucking, saying that there's this thing in our water that we've got to be worried about, and frankly, they should be worried about it. I had inquired about what Jupiter Water is doing and what Seacoast Utilities is doing, and I will assure our people that we don't have this problem. That, again, I don't want to digress, but I think that when they use reverse osmosis and membrane filtration at Jupiter Water, and I'm not certain what the setup is at Seacoast, but Seacoast has never detected PFAS in their water supply. So, but I think that the stuff that we're getting in our water is from Jupiter Water is not so much a problem with the creation of Jupiter Water, but it's all the sediment and the problems in the piping infrastructure. But the water as delivered by Jupiter is just great water. And I'm sure Seacoast is the same. Joe's going to better position to talk about that because he's on the board of Seacoast. Anyway, let's get back to Rob Long. So they're telling Rob Long, if you don't retract all these things that you said, we're kicking you off the board. They told him that. They said, we're going to give you 1 more month to come back and apologize, and then you won't be a witch and you can be on the Planning and Zoning Board. So I had, not that I know a lot about PFAS, but I know a lawyer up in Tallahassee who knows a lot about PFAS. And I was able to hook Rob up with League of Cities, and he was able to use some reference bank material that we had put together. He wrote a very nice op-ed piece and in fact cited the League of Cities material. I actually gave 3 minutes of public comment testimony saying that you can't kick somebody off a board for being contrarian. You can't, just because of his view. I mean, frankly, from a legal standpoint, they can do whatever they want. The Planning and Zoning Board serves at the pleasure of the council, I guess is the best way to describe it. But to kick a person off because they're calling attention to what is a very real but not clearly well quantified issue in the community, I thought was heresy. So I intervened, and I think that there probably was a lot of other pressure on the town council, but I will tell you that at the city council meeting last week, they did not bring up the resolution to pull this guy. And at least for now, they're all living happily ever after. And I am delighted to be up in North County where our dysfunction is minimal and compared to the goings on down there in the city of Delray Beach.
That's a disaster.
So that's how I've stayed out of trouble this month. And the other thing I guess I had to say is the parade was great. I had just a whole lot of fun getting ready for the parade. And as you know, one of the local automotive companies gave me a pretty nice chariot to ride around. And so Joe said, maybe you ought to file a gift report or whatnot, for the Ethics Commission. So I wrote to the Ethics Commission and told them, we'd gotten this thing, and they turned around and said, well, really, it wasn't a gift to you so much as probably was a gift to the town, but we all had fun is the point. And let's do it again. And I'd like to do it again, irrespective if I'm always looking for silver linings in the pandemic. And I think that the discovery of the holiday parade was one of those silver linings. I'd like to see us do it again next year, independent of what I hope is a bright future for next year. And the message I want to leave is one of optimism. And while this whole pandemic has become too political for my liking, I think we really are turning the corner in the sense that a more normal future is ahead of us, and I think we have reason to be optimistic at this point.
Peggy?
I want to start with a conversation that was brought up at the ecology group meeting, or actually, I think it was brought up at the planning and zoning. And they talked about, a point was made about landscaping natives and salt-tolerant landscaping material. And I thought it was really an appropriate comment because if you're new to Florida or new to a home, ownership, and you're starting to landscape, you really don't know what is and what is not salt tolerant. So I think that education and telling people, or at least letting them know, and I'm hoping this is something we can do through our civic association, is important. I know they got into a conversation about indigenous plants and what's native and what's not native, but that's also important because, there was a point made that, bringing something into Florida versus something coming from New York is not necessarily indigenous to our area. So that was all interesting, and I think it was all a good point. There was also some comments about the PUDs, and Frank, if Frank's still here, can I ask you a quick question on this? I know the town regulates PUDs and the native plants, and how long have we had our 50% native plant ordinance?
I do not have an answer for that. It's
been
been over 8 years. I've been here 8 years. It's been here since then.
Len can actually look it up.
Okay, so it's been there for a while though,
Very
right?
long time,
Very
decades.
long
time, okay.
Long time.
Decades.
So they were just looking at doing something that was clarifying versus.
Yeah.
versus
The
really
language was
changing
not
anything.
clear.
Right.
It contradicted itself.
Right.
And then just a quick question for you, Frank. I should have asked you this earlier, but the PUD, does the town actually regulate if it's 50% and they want to stay there, but a HOA tells them to go over, and you have to put 70% in? Do they have to follow the town or do they have to follow the HOA?
Well, no, when a project comes in, the minimum standard is the 50%. They can always go above that.
Above that.
Right, but at the time when it comes in to you, there is no HOA. That's the developer making that decision. Once it becomes the responsibility of the HOA, they can go higher than that. It would just be an amendment to an approved landscape plan.
Right, okay. All right. And then the ecology group, I feel the same way you do, Stuart. I was sitting there and I was just, you guys are doing an amazing job. Staff, the ecology group, everyone, you're making leaps and bounds, information, education, decision-making. Jim, I'm sure you were there, you'll agree with that. So thank you to everyone. I can't imagine council having to hear all this. We would be lost. So it's just, it's so nice. It's just so nice to attend those meetings. Committees we really haven't had is Sustainability Economic Development Committee meeting, so there's nothing to report there. I know, Stuart, you have a governmental meeting on Friday, right?
Yes.
And the parade, what a great success. Oh my goodness, I can't tell you how many comments I've had. So hopefully we will be able to do that next year. And I don't know, I heard Alyssa came up with that a long time ago, that idea. So we got to thank Alyssa for that. And it would have been nice to see other people like Civic Association in there since they've done so much for the town. So maybe next year, if we can hold this again, we can start including some of the other groups that maybe can get in. But people were just thrilled with it, everyone that I've talked to. They could set up in the condos because a lot of people can't make it here. So it's an addition to what we do.
I lost my voice screaming at the people on the condo.
Yeah, I know. But they were up in their windows and they were just waving, and it was just wonderful to see. So, and also Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah. Peggy, I hope you can forgive me tonight for about the town hall park. And I hope you find it in your heart to remove my picture from your dartboard.
Oh, Jim, stop it. Stop that.
But anyway, seriously, we all do what we feel is best for the town, and it's good we have disagreements up here. It's good we're not 4-0, 5-0, whatever. It's we air things out, but when we leave here, it's forgotten. I mean,
We all love each other.
yeah. So, Joe, you like sporting terms. The parade was a grand slam. It really was, and I hope it is an annual tradition in the town. I mean, I didn't, I was kind of lukewarm about it. I thought, it's okay, but it was really far above what I ever expected. It was really great, and people I've gotten more comments on that parade.
We did too.
From residents. It's phenomenal.
All positive too.
Yeah. So anyway, thank staff and thank Alyssa. What a great idea.
Yes.
So anyway, and happy Hanukkah, happy Merry Christmas, and a healthy, happy 21.
I wanted to just add the police department. They did a marvelous job. I forgot to add that. And Caitlin, thank you so much because you really helped us organize, decorate our cars. And I want to make sure that we recognize
a team effort.
guys too.
And Mike was a great Santa Claus.
Yes. Oh my God, he did a great
He did.
job.
We got a lot of compliments on that.
Can't get him to take off the suit
I need it back. I need it back.
I think the other thing I would say is that I think staff needs to start planning for St. Patrick's Day, which I hope is a new holiday in the Juno Beach calendar, one that we can kind of remember Frank by.
Good reminder. We need to do that.
ice cream social.
No, have you ever been to one of his? There was a lot of food involved, so we gotta have food.
Corned beef.
Corned beef, yes.
Right.
Yeah, you're okay with it. And beer. He had a lot of beer.
A couple quick comments. I've got nothing but positive feedback on that parade as well. And just great job by the staff, putting it together, organizing it, getting everybody out there. And really, it was a lot of fun. And I think the residents had a lot of fun. I know every year I compliment Matt Pizanski. He gets, I believe you get an award on the, on the finance side, and every time I compliment you on it, you go, it's the town's award. Matt, I don't think there's any other municipality that's going to have that track record. I don't know how many in a row it is. It's just year in, year out, top-notch work. And you just continue to do that, and you do it, quietly, thoroughly, and with a whole lot of detail. And it comes through in the budget, and it makes our job easier. And I'm glad you get the recognition every year. And true to form and your personality, you share it with the town. So, but it's your hard work and your leadership in that department that really brings it through.
His picture's on the plaque. I mean.
It's in the post office, you said?
On the plaque.
So great job on that. And that's it. We stand adjourned.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.